5.
Good morning and welcome to the Wednesday, September 23rd, 2020 Board of County Commissioners meeting. I'm Kate Flavin, Public Information Officer with Sedgwick County. This meeting, once again, can be streamed live on KPTS Channel 8, also on Sedgwick County's Facebook page and our YouTube channel. Commissioners are at the bench again this week with plexiglass barriers dividing them. Staff and guests are socially distanced in the room. We also have our masks. We will be using the conference line if it's needed this morning during our meeting, but I just want to remind everyone of our healthy precautions here for COVID-19. There was no staff meeting yesterday, so nothing to report on a staff meeting. But I would like to remind a few folks, if you are a parent or a guardian of a student in Sedgwick County, I'd like to remind everyone that our health department is offering a back-to-school vaccination clinic this Saturday from 8 a.m. to noon at our main clinic on 2716 West Central. No appointment is necessary. And if you cannot make it this Saturday morning, we do have other times available and other locations available as well. You can find all of that information on our social media channels and on our website. I would also like to remind everyone, Sedgwick County and American Legion Post 408 will have a sign dedication for Veterans Memorial Road at 10 a.m. on Saturday, October 3rd. This will take place at 3100 North Rock Road. The public's invited to join. We will be wearing masks and socially distancing. But as this is our last regular meeting of the month and before this event, I would like to make sure that everyone is made aware of this event. And finally, I would like to make sure that everyone is aware, even though we couldn't have Jubilee in its normal form, how we typically celebrate the zoo's annual fundraiser, there is still time to purchase your Jubilee to Go cards. If you go to scz.org, you can donate and you can purchase your Jubilee to Go card. This card gives you the opportunity to gain access and exclusive deals with local restaurants, local shops, and supporting our local businesses here. So once again, that is scz.org, and information is there on the zoo's website. On the agenda, Commissioners, we have several meeting minutes. Commissioners will select representatives for the annual KAC conference. We have an update on the USD 259 and CommCare program and a related grant renewal for that. We'll have a discussion of the CARES Act and the report of the Board of Bids and Contracts. And then following the meeting, we will have the public agenda. So, Chairman, I will let you begin the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Kate. Commissioner Howell?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just one clarification, that 3100 North Rock Road is in Derby. It's at the north city limits of Derby, near the Derby North Middle School. So,
thank you.
Because we actually have a North Rock Road in Wichita as well. I want to make sure people understand it's actually in Derby. So
thank you very much for that clarification.
Okay, thank you. With that, we'll call the Wednesday, September 23rd, Board of Sedgwick County Commissioners meeting to order. Thank you all for watching on KPTS. We are back here at our stations with plexiglass separating us. And with that, we'll call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, first item, please.
Invocation to be led by Pastor Pamela M. Hughes Mason from St. Paul AME Church. Please remain standing for the flag salute.
Let us pray. O God, as we gather on this day, we come asking for your guidance. Lord, 2020 has been challenging, but we are collectively engaged in the challenge with your help. We ask that your peace settles within each of us. There are so many urgent needs that surround our county, just as there are so many triumphs to celebrate also. Coupled with the things we have not experienced before that birth a crisis response. This season is a season of necessary change and evaluating and taking appropriate action. Action plans well thought out, Lord, considering all sides, facts over feelings, identifying really what the goal really is and how does it affect the people of our county. Lord, help the county commissioners to recognize their role in that change, a change that affects every person we are watching. As the commissioners work with a determination to be an example of a unified body serving well, combining their assigned portions of that plan to create a plan for our community, utilizing effective communication skills, listening collectively to the voices of our county, making sound decisions, breaking through barriers, weighing the facts, truth prevailing over pressure, and valuing one another. Lord, today let the work flourish, setting aside divisive tactics and working collaboratively to create an atmosphere that promotes and produces a clear action plan and strategy for the revitalization of our county, a county that embraces all lives, a county in which each component is valued and respected, with a profound determination to work together for a common goal. Lord, intervene as we pull ourselves back together. Lord, we place our confidence in those elected to collectively serve our county, and we hold them accountable. We too, every citizen, hold ourselves responsible to actively do our part. Lord, we pray for each county commissioner and their families. We pray for the administrative staff and their families. We pray for their health as they meet for hours upon hours. We pray for your guidance as decisions are contemplated and reached. We pray for all who enter this room and in person or virtually. We pray that we present an image that is business-oriented with deliberate touches of humanity interwoven with every action. All people matter. We pray for every voice that comes forward to request or to refer to. We pray as the milestones are accomplished. We pray as your new norm is established. We pray for every person whose life has been affected by the pandemics, COVID-19, racial injustice, voter suppression. Lord, that's all of us. We have all been affected in one way or the other, and we need your help. We pray for every known and unknown field of essential workers. We pray for our children, our youth, our young adults, our seniors, and those human beings who are often forgotten and overlooked. We pray for all humankind. Lord, we pray that love prevails in all that we do and that wisdom guides our choices. We need you, Lord. We need one another. Oh God, have mercy. Have mercy on us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor, for inspiring speech to us. Thank you very much for the invocation. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Roll call. Commissioner O'Donnell?
Present.
Commissioner Dennis?
Present.
Commissioner Howell?
Present.
Commissioner Cruz?
Present.
Chairman Meitzner.
Present. Next item, please.
Consideration of minutes. Item A, special meeting minutes of August 10th, 2020.
Commissioners, if it's okay, I'd like to combine A, B, C, and D, items A, B, C, and D, which is the special minutes of August 10th, the regular meeting minutes of August 12th, the special meeting minutes of August 13th, and the regular meeting minutes of August 19th. Thank you. I'll second that. Okay. Commissioner Dennis, second. Okay, any other questions? Being none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell? Aye. Commissioner Dennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz? Aye. Chairman Meitzner.
Aye. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
New business. Item E, selection of voting delegate and alternates for the Kansas Association of Counties 2020 KAC virtual conference event.
Commissioners, I think this is me. This is the annual KAC conference event. I know that some of us have attended some in the past. Apparently, it's virtual this year. We are required to make a selection of our voting delegate and a first alternate and a second alternate. I would like to make a motion that we move for Commissioner Dennis to be the voting delegate.
Second that.
Okay, been a motion second. Any other questions? Being none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell? Commissioner Dennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz?
Aye.
Chairman Meitzner.
Aye. On the first delegate, I would be glad to serve as the first alternate delegate, if that's so the wish of the commission. So I'll make a motion that I'll be the first alternate.
Second.
Be a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell? Commissioner Dennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz?
Aye.
Chairman Meitzner.
Aye. And for the second alternate, being I'm the chair, I would vote that we make a motion that we do go with the pro tem, which is Commissioner Lacey Cruz as the second alternate.
Second.
And a motion is second for the second alternate. Any other questions? Being none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell? Commissioner Dennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz?
Aye.
Chairman Meitzner.
Aye. Okay, the item E, the motion carries, and I know that's coming up. We may have to move our meeting that day around a little bit on the 14th, I believe, or see what the schedule looks like, because we still have some important CARES money and decisions we've got to make, so we need to have some kind of a meeting on the 14th still, the way I understand it. So, but we'll get there as closer we get. Okay, Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item F, USD 259 Mental Health Intervention Program Renewal for fiscal year 2021.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. Joan Tammany with ComCare.
Good morning, Joe. Welcome.
And happy fall. I just can't believe we're in. I was hearing on the EOC yesterday that we have lived COVID in each season this year already. So it's just amazing how time flies, isn't it? But I'm here today for good news because ComCare and USD 259 desire to continue working in partnership in the school mental health program. This will be the third year of the partnership. There's no change in the funding agreement or contract terms other than we are adding one school in USD 259. As you may recall, the overall goals of the program are to improve the social emotional wellness and outcomes for students by increasing access to treatment providers. Total funding for this program is a combination of the $1,049,031 from the Kansas Department of Education to support the staffing, along with fees that we collect for the direct services we provide from Medicaid and Medicare, not Medicare, but commercial insurances. This is an important program, probably more so this year than in others, and we're excited to further enhance the collaboration, and we know it's going to be different with the pandemic and other social issues impacting our community. As you may recall, each partnership is required to submit regular reports to the Department of Education and the legislative champions and committees of this program. With this partnership, ComCare and USD 29 continue to have the belief that 1 + 1 is greater than 2, and that we collectively have had and will continue to have a positive impact on the needs of those we serve. If you recall, we have 3 outcomes that we track and report on every quarter. Those are school performance, school attendance, and behavior in the classroom. I think the important piece for you guys to know is that last year we served 887 youth, which is almost 200 more than the first year of the program. And I'm pleased to report that the outcomes are even more impressive this year than in year 1, too. We had 71% of the youth who participated in the program improved their attendance at school, 70% showed improved behavior, and 60% showed improved academics. I think that's pretty telling that this is important and meaningful in the lives of those we serve. Students and families have reported that being able to have services during school hours is important because it's not one more thing they have to be taken out of school for to attend. It's also doesn't require parents to take time off of the jobs they have and risk their employment in order to get their kids to appointments. Many of the youth that have reported issues with struggles with depression, with past trauma, with impulse control, anxiety, and just to name a few. And we have had lots of reports from families and youth that they are reporting decreased depression, improvement in self-esteem, better impulse control, in response to receiving the services during their school day. We're not seeking any additional positions. We do know that this will be a challenging year with the hybrid models of schooling. We are not getting the same volume of referrals as we have at the start of each school year in the last two terms of the contract, but we know that's because the schools are trying to navigate their new normal and are just kind of getting up to speed with all of that. But the conversations continue between USD 259 administration and their liaisons in this program, and we're confident that it'll be successful again this year. So I'm here asking that you approve the contract, authorize the chairman to sign all necessary documents, and establish the budget authority pursuant to the contract terms.
Okay.
Here for any questions.
Thank you, John. There's a couple of questions. Commissioner Cruz.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for being here today, Joan. I think, every time we talk about this subject, the Frederick Douglass quote comes to mind. It's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men.
Isn't
and I
that
think
true?
That's so incredibly important to understand that trauma in childhood could last forever. One thing that's really kind of cool about this program this year is their digital aspects. So being able to get online to request a counselor in schools. So that's really kind of cool. Are there other things that they're doing differently because of the pandemic this year that you'd like to discuss or highlight?
Well, I think it's just really important to know that we're going to try to meet those youth and families where they're at. So we have a hybrid model of delivery right now. So if we have the ability to safely deliver services in the school or in the family home, we will. If they're open to virtual visits using a computer or an iPad, we will do that. And if a last resort, they don't have that technology and don't feel safe being seen in person, we'll do those services telephonically. So we're just trying to be creative in how we meet those needs and how we could deliver it. The other thing we often do is we have the ability to put technology in a room in the school and then remote to that person and do it there as well. So lots of options.
Yeah, well, I just can't thank you enough for the work that you do. I love to see the numbers improve, and these are pretty great as far as how we're really impacting students in our community. I'd like to make a motion, but I see that I have another commissioner who'd like to make a comment, so I'll wait to do that.
Okay. We'll wait. Commissioner Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. Thanks, Joan, for being here. I've supported this program from the very beginning. I think it's very important. Having taught school, I know the impact that something like this can have. It's been a long time since we've gotten an update on this program, though, and I'd like to see if we could get something scheduled to give us a more detailed update, because until Commissioner Cruz mentioned it this morning, I didn't know that we were doing this remotely with computers. So that was part of my question, is how are we reaching the students today when a lot of them aren't in school? So I think it's important that we get an update so we know exactly what's happening. The other question that I would have is, because they're not back in school, not everyone is back in school, the grant covers the students that have no insurance, no Medicaid type things. The way that we're recovering the funding that we're spending for this is through those sources. And I just don't know where we're at on funding-wise. Are we breaking even on this? I don't. So I think when you come back to brief us on it, we need to know exactly where this program is, what schools we're in right now, especially with some of the schools shut down and doing things remotely. So I would really, because I am interested in this, I do believe it's the right thing to do. I'd really like an update to get us a better idea of exactly what's happening.
We do quarterly reports, and so we submit those usually the month after the quarter ends, so that would be a good time to do that, because then we'll have cumulative data for those 3 months, those initial 3 months.
But I'd like you to come here and brief us.
Yeah, willing to do that. I'm just suggesting maybe we do it when we do after we submit our
great.
quarterly report.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You bet. Commissioner O'Donnell.
I was just going to see if maybe like last year, having Dr. Thompson come in and speak to us would be an option, just giving us a better overview of it. Not that you're not good, but somebody, feet on the ground, doing that would be helpful. I assume probably because of COVID she didn't come, but I know you've brought her in the past.
Yeah, we didn't bring her for the contract agreement, but she came and helped with the summary last year.
Yeah, so thank you.
Okay, and Commissioner Cruz?
Thank you. Yeah, children are in school. They might not be physically in the building, but my daughter is on her computer every day, and we have to talk about appropriate uses of our computer and the on-off button on your camera and where you can put it in the house and those kinds of things. So it's been interesting to have a child working remotely from home, learning remotely. And so I can't stress enough how incredible the teachers at Pleasant Valley Middle School are. I have heard their instruction. I have been in the background listening, so I've learned a few things myself that I forgot from 6th grade. So it's been interesting to say the least. But I would love to hear more about this, obviously. That's why I kind of had this, it was on consent and I pulled it off because I wanted you guys to be able to hear everything that's going on. So outside of having you come back, I'd like to make a motion today that we approve the submission of the grant and have the authorization for the chairman to sign.
There's a motion and a second to approve the grant as presented. Don't see any other questions. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell? Commissioner Dennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz?
Aye.
Chairman Meitzner.
Aye. Motion carries. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item G, discussion of the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act.
Okay. Yes. Rusty, thank you for being here.
This is going to be a three. Gotcha. Okay. This is going to be a three-part series here. We're going to have three speakers who are going to come and talk to you about this. First is obviously going to be Deputy CFO Brent Shelton, who's going to talk about external funding programs and give you an update. He'll be followed by Assistant County Councilor Mike Fessinger, who will talk about subrecipient agreements. And then CFO Lindsay Poe-Rousseau will follow up with spending status and some additional information, just so you know.
Okay. So we will know which parts are receive and file and which parts need a motion to approve.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Excuse me.
Welcome.
Um,
Brent.
Thank you, Chairman Meitzner and Commissioners. For the record, Brent Shelton, your Deputy CFO. My portion this morning will be to talk about the 4 external funding programs that are underway. We've made a lot of progress in the last week since we spoke to you before, and we're at the point where we're ready to begin pushing some money out into the community. Some of the items that will, as we talk about these, you're going to notice, excuse me, that our original allocations aren't going to be sufficient for some of the things we're asking for. As Lindsay comes up later and speaks to you about the revised spending plan, the CARE spending plan, we'll be picking up things to make sure that we do have adequate allocations to fund these requests. So let's begin with our Public Health and Social Services program. And as you know, that was originally, we allocated $13.5 million for that. The portal for that program closed, as you know, last Sunday at midnight. And to give you a final update, we had 66 unique applications totaling $27,505,471.20. So $27.5 million was applied for. That includes things like a couple of $1 million across these agencies for PPE and disinfectant equipment. $6.8 million in technology to allow them to deliver services remotely and work from home. A number of other things are in these, and your financial stimulus review team will begin meeting, or will again meet tomorrow morning as scheduled at 10 o'clock. They have a special meeting scheduled for next Monday at noon in this room. It'll be also on Zoom, YouTube, and Facebook, where they will begin making award recommendations that we'll bring back to you on October 7th for your final approval. So we're well underway with that and look forward to bringing that to you in 2 weeks. The second program that I wanted to visit about is the Safe Operating Grant Program for small businesses. That portal closed on September 11th, 2020. The final count was 447 applications, unique applications, and we're in the process now of verifying their eligibility, assuring that proper documentation is in place, and getting them ready to receive those $5,000 grants. I sent you this morning a list of all 477 of those businesses. And what we would like to do at this point is I would like to ask for your approval for us to give us pending approval, tentative approval to fund those applications as we have vetted them for eligibility, as we make sure documentation is in place, after they have signed the grant agreement, so that we can continue to push the money out or make that flow of funds happen between now and October 7th, when we would bring this back before you. So it amounts to $2,385,000 at the maximum amount. No funds will be distributed until all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. But then we would be able to push those monies out if we can get your approval to continue that processing and work it in that manner. So I guess now I would pause to see if you would consider that motion.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we did receive a list of is it 447, 477?
477.
77, okay.
If I said 447, I apologize, typo.
Yep, Commissioner Cruz, and then Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Chairman. Do we have any of those 400 and, what's the quickest that they're going to get out? I mean, are there any that are done today that if we prove it today, they can receive their check?
They would be the next step we have some that are at the contract stage, so we would be able then to send them agreements for them to sign electronically, return to us, and then we can begin to push them on through the process. So I would say Tuesday would be the earliest with the next check run that we could begin distributing $5,000 checks.
Okay, so if all the info is in on Tuesday of next week.
Right.
Okay. And then are we going to discuss the additional, is that later in the program where we're going to discuss the additional grant opportunities?
Mm-hmm. That's the next item I have.
Okay, so that's really all the questions I have for now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. And this Tuesday, this first distribution is based on an approval by us on a motion and an approval.
Correct.
But,
Right.
okay, Commissioner O'Donnell?
Thanks, Brent. So when we're giving out these grants, I know you're trying to do it timely. However, do we risk running out of money for them as you're processing through? Because I know that was a major issue with like the PPP grants, for example, the PPP loans, where there were all the people in the front of the line got it, and a lot of people in the back didn't. Are we making sure we're not going to run into that?
Exactly. Commissioner O'Donnell, we have allocated $5 million to the grant program. These 477 amount to $2,385,000. So you would authorize us today to spend or to distribute checks up to the 2.385 number with this motion. And then the next thing we're going to do is ask you to reopen that. But no, we don't run out with this as we're beginning to send out checks.
Right, so these ones that we're authorizing today, that's all that we received that qualified. And you're under the impression that all 447 did qualify?
There are, I can't tell you that for sure. We have some that may not.
But we're still going to set aside money in case they do.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Commissioner Cruz?
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's important to note that we had, we offered it up to 1,000 small businesses and only 477 or a few extras because we had some duplicate applications, apply. So there will be another round, which is what you're going to talk about in a second. So I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the first round of small business grants. I don't know the exact language,
for my motion, but do I need to say the exact amount?
477 applications in the amount of 2.38.
$2,385,000.
$2,385,000.
So I'd like to make a motion that we approve the first round of small business grants in the amount of $2,385,000.
Been a motion and a second. Any other questions, comments? Being none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell? Commissioner Dennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz?
Aye.
Chairman Meitzner.
Aye. Okay, motion's approved. Thank you, Brent, for your explanation.
You bet. Thank you, Commissioners. In that first round, we were targeting small mom-and-pop businesses that had fewer than 50 employees. We know for a fact that we had some businesses that were at 55 or 60 or 70 employees that were not able to take advantage of this program. So what we're asking now is to reopen that online portal, remove the employee limitation at 50 employees, and open this up to the entire business community for application for the small business grants. So everything else stays the same. We just throwing out a wider net at this point.
So the only caveat from the previous round was that it was limited, you had to be 50 or under employees, and now you want to reopen the portal for any business 50 or more employees.
They could still be 50 or fewer,
Right.
just no
Yeah.
employee
I'm
limitation.
sorry, yeah, no employees, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't know who was first. Commissioner Dennis?
Thanks, Brent. This second round, I think is important, and I do support that, but will it increase the amount of $1,000 that we have now to something larger for some of the larger businesses?
This in and of itself will not increase that allocation above 5,000, Commissioner. What this would do is to continue to try to get as many funds out to as many different affected people as possible. There's a number of steps. Guidance from our consultants have indicated that $5,000 is the sweet spot for follow-up monitoring to make sure we have compliance and so forth. So we're not looking to increase the amount at this time. Depending on the results that we get from this program, the second round, there may be additional funds at the end of the time when we would close that portal that we could look at something at that point.
Okay. You said we were going to talk about three things. Are we going to talk about increasing the amount of funds today, or is that another day?
I don't think that we're quite prepared to recommend that we would increase the amount of funds at this time. As we said, that establishes a lot of different underwriting criteria that we would probably need to look at some sort of outsourcing to help us with that, depending on those amounts. The monitoring and after the award is made is a lot more stringent as we go forward. So it's a much, we're not ready to tell you we're ready to stand that up yet, but we're taking a hard look at being able to do that.
Very good. Well, just day before yesterday, you and I had a discussion on this subject, and I wanted to make sure all the commissioners had an opportunity to hear what our discussion was about. Part of it was what you've already mentioned, is that up to $5,000 is kind of the sweet spot because we don't have to have a lot of reporting information back. Above that, we're going to have tax returns. We're going to have how the money is spent. We're going to have an awful lot of information. My concern, as you and I talked earlier this week, is that our CFO and her staff are already overwhelmed with what's going on. You're doing a great job, a tremendous job, but I'm worried about adding extra things on your plate. So I would hope in the near future we could come back and see if we could get, as you and I talked, a bank to take over some of this functions of providing some of these larger grants. So I hope you have a recommendation along that line in the near future. The reason that you and I had that discussion here recently was that you and I also were on a phone call with the owners of the Cotillion and the Wave. And they're not able to open. They can't do what some of the other businesses are doing and have carry out and other things to be able to continue to operate because acts are not moving around the country. You can't bring an act in for a large venue like that because there are no acts that want to come in. And so they are hurting very badly. So I hope that we can figure out some way of different businesses that are affected by this coronavirus through no fault of their own, and no way of recovering. I hope that we can figure out a way, and the folks we talked about from the Cotillion and the Wave are they're conservative also. They're having huge losses, but they're not trying to recover their income losses. They're trying to stay alive so that when this is over with, that they can then go back into business again. So the amount of loans are not near what their income loss would be, or not loan, I said that wrong, a grant is not near what their income loss is. It's a survival type grant. And unless we can figure out some way of helping them out, we're going to lose some different venues that have been around for a lot of years and that a lot of people want to retain in our community. So I hope that you all, that our CFO and the rest of the staff can come up with some ways that we can move to that next step. And I know that we're going to go ahead probably and approve this next step and add some additional funding to it, but I don't want to run out of funding before we get to that final step to help those large venues that I'm talking about. So I will be supportive of trying to reopen this, but I want to make sure that that the people that are definitely impacted with this, that we're listening to them. Thank you, Brent.
You bet. Thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Brandon, excuse me 1 second. Let's recall the process that we've been under is we approve buckets, and then hoping that bucket's going to either be it was an estimate that we first
Right.
did, and I think we're going to, so the next steps that you might be referring to will include readjusting some of the buckets now that we're into this. So I don't know if you want to add to that, but then Commissioner Cruz has a question.
Yeah, then this next step would be to reopen it for any size business. When Lindsay speaks to you in a little bit about adjustments to the spending plan, she's going to recommend an additional allocation to this specific program. Once that portal has closed, and we would recommend a 2.5 week period, then we'll see what's left at that point to look at some other ways to help the business community.
Okay, Commissioner Cruz. Thank you, Brent.
Thank you, Chairman. So let me understand. So the balance of the original $5,000 or $5 million that we allocated will be now reopened, or we're going to add an additional $2.5 million. So that's what you're asking for right now. Is that what you're asking for? Or that's what she's going to discuss.
Right now, we're asking to reopen the portal,
Okay.
and then when Lindsay
For the
comes,
balance of what we.
just to reopen the portal, and then when Lindsay comes up, she will
Okay.
say, here's the new numbers.
Reopen the portal.
Okay.
Right, that's all we're looking for now is let us reach out now to the wider business community and seek applications.
Okay, so you're seeking a motion to reopen the portal.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to reopen the portal
For all businesses.
for all businesses.
I'll second. Commissioner O'Donnell, second. Okay. Any other questions? Being none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell? Commissioner Dennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz?
Aye.
Chairman Meitzner?
Aye. Motion carries. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Commissioners. The third area that we want to visit about this morning is our workforce development program. And that received an allocation of $1.3 million. Businesses told us they needed to provide training to employees. So we've received 3 different distinct proposals for ways to deliver some training to either upskill, reskill, provide new skills or whatever to our workforce. So to give you an overview of the 3 requests, first of all, we received a proposal from WSU Tech for $970,000. They have a 3-part program. Briefly, the first part is $645,000 to provide for new equipment, specifically in their aviation maintenance technician program. When we saw all the layoffs in the aviation industry, their enrollment went up by about 25%. There's a lot of classroom learning and some hands-on learning, but they were already crowded, and now they've got more folks in the confined space. So they can't safely provide this training to these students without having new equipment, so that they can do two things. One is provide more hands-on or lab experiences, and they've requested funding for equipment to do that. The second thing is for 75 new laptops that are high-powered, that have a lot of processing speed, because they work on engineering-type programs. So that allows the students to do remote learning and then have more safely spaced on hands-on experiences as they're going through that AMT program. The second part of their program is a $25,000 request for their healthcare programs. As students near the end of their classroom or the remote learning sessions, they need to participate in clinical rotations. That's imperative as they move into providing healthcare services in the community. So they're asking for $25,000 for PPE, so these students can safely operate and participate in those clinical rotations. The third part of their proposal is to stand up a recovery center. The recovery center has two parts, a total of $300,000. The basic idea behind this is that businesses could hire an employee that's a student on a part-time basis. They'll be provided some stipend, some equipment, and they have an earn and learn program. So if I'm getting skilled to do maybe AMT or another program, I can go to work part-time, go to school part-time, and the company gets a stipend for that, and we provide these earn and learn opportunities. So that's another way to get students that real-world experience. It can be with current employees of a business that they divert a layoff by having somebody work part-time and go to school part-time. They can be new students as well. So those are the three pieces of their program for which they're requesting $970,000. I would say all three of those are in direct response to COVID-related layoffs or averting COVID-related layoffs. The second proposal that we received was from Friends University. It's a request of $125,000. They would propose to offer $1,000 scholarships for up to 90 students that have been affected due to employment disruption, either personally or a family member, so that they've been either unable to continue on their educational path, they've been taken off that educational path because they no longer have the funds for tuition, or they're in danger of not being able to continue their education. So their proposal would be to provide scholarships to some of the current students, some that may have gone and want to come back, and to reach out to some new students. Part of their funds would be for some marketing efforts and some outreach to bring students in. They have a session that's underway currently, another one that comes up in October. So if Friends is not able to allocate all of the $90,000, we would know that in October and then could recapture those funds for a different allocation going forward. So we do have the ability, if they can't fund this program fully, that those monies would be returned, and we've had those conversations with them. As with WSU Tech and with the third proposal, all the trainings will be delivered by December 30th of 2020. Our third proposal is from the Workforce Alliance of South Central Kansas. They've been working with a number of businesses that have indicated that they need to train folks to keep them employed. So this is not necessarily training, the focus of this is not training people that have been laid off, but keeping people on the payroll, keeping them from being laid off. So they have a number of businesses that some want to offer in-house training, some are going to go to WSU Tech or other providers for educational services and provide a number of trainings and reskilling and upskilling employees so that they can stay on the job. If we fully fund that, they anticipate that they will affect or save about 450 jobs, with the potential to create another 80 to 100 jobs as a result of providing this training. So our recommendation would be that you make allocations in a total amount of $1,900,000. Where'd my number go? $1,937,829, and we will then begin the process of awarding those grants and getting the monitoring processes established and the grant agreements in place.
Okay. Commissioner Cruz.
Thank you, Chairman. Can you speak to me a little bit more about the Friends ask? You say they're going to provide $91,000 scholarships. Is that what you said?
That's their original proposal,
And what are they asking for? What's the total amount?
$125,000.
And so the additional $35,000 is going to be used for what?
That would be used, there's, some of it's for marketing, some of it was for some technology to support the program.
So, is this going to be designed for a technical program, or is this for a student to do whatever they please at Friends?
They were focusing on business students
Okay.
primarily.
Is this for a 4-year degree? Is this for, what would this be for?
It could be for a 4-year degree, if they, to the extent they have 2-year programs. It could be, they were not, they weren't saying they weren't exempting any programs from this. It was primarily to get folks that were currently enrolled or wanted to be enrolled to keep them on that path.
So the average cost to go to school at Friends or WSU Tech or some, work at the Workforce Alliance Center, in comparison to, what's the biggest bang for the buck when it comes to this educational funds? Would we be able to help more students if we had more money allocated to one or the other, I guess is my question.
I would say that, you want me to rank them? Is that what you mean?
Or is this WSU Tech's ask is for the money that they feel like they can allocate in this time with the programs that they can offer? Is that kind of how?
Right.
Okay.
And speaking to the Fringe University proposal, one of the questions I asked was, if you don't find 90 students, would you be willing to provide a higher scholarship to a fewer number? And they're willing to do that. They just think that they're thinking that they have about 90. That was just their initial proposal. So it may be 45 students with $2,000 apiece.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we have contracts in place with each of these 3 different organizations so we can get the funding out as soon as possible?
We don't have contracts in place right now for these grant agreements. If approved, then we will establish those as quickly as possible and get that money flowing. One of the things, if they know that they have an award, they could begin their procurement process while we get things in place. But they're each
I
one
just don't
unique.
want to delay this and have the money sitting there allocated, and then 30 December is coming up pretty fast.
Yes, it is.
So I want to make sure that we can work these as quick as possible. And if we put $2 million in a bucket over here that we can't use for something else and we can't get the contracts, that kind of ties it up.
I think we will know, we'll know in October how much of this money can be, that they will be spending. So we'll be able to reallocate at that point.
Very good. Well, I'm supportive of this. I just want to make sure we can move forward as quick as we can. So therefore, I make a motion that that we allocate $1,937,829 for workforce development.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Just to clarify, Brent, this was an exact number that's not like up to 2 million. You're asking us to approve 1,937,829.
That's what fully funds all the programs.
All right,
that
that's
we
the
have.
motion. That's the motion and second as prepared. Just want to make sure. Thank you for clarifying. Any other questions? Being none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell? Commissioner Dennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz?
Aye.
Chairman Meitzner.
All right. Good.
The final item is to give you an update on the PPE kit distribution for small businesses. We will begin distributing kits on October 12th, 2020, from 14 different locations, including Intrust Bank Arena and a number of locations throughout the county. This morning at 9 a.m., we opened a portal for small businesses to go in and reserve a kit, and then to tell us from which location they would like to pick up their, I think Kate's bringing up some information.
Thanks, Kate. Yeah, this will be helpful because we obviously need to get this information out.
Right. There we go.
PPE supply kit request.
So we have a very simple process for businesses to go online, enter their business address and some additional information, basically the size of business, who their contact person is, number of employees, and then they can request from us, when they are filling this out, the preferred pickup location. That helps our folks that are distributing the kits make sure we have enough in Cheney or enough in Goddard or enough in Hayesville when they come to pick up those kits. So once they have completed this, then they will be able to print out a coupon. They'll bring that at the time they pick up the kit, and we'll then provide them with the kit based on the information that they provided us up front. And if you remember, we've got a couple sizes of kits, one for the small offices, one for smaller retailers, one for larger companies, and so forth. So that helps us know if they've got 50 employees, which kit to have available. If they're a restaurant, there are extra masks, things like that, as they come to pick up these kits. Now, when we came to you first with this program, we told you there would be 5,000. We were going to try to order 5,000 kits. Our purchasing folks have done a phenomenal job, and we basically have doubled that. There are 10,000 kits available, so we stretched that $3 million twice as far as we thought we were going to be able to in getting those kits out and available. All these distribution sites are going to be open the week of the 12th through the 16th, those 5 days. And we've been a lot of work has gone into getting the supplies ordered, getting the supplies at the Intrust Bank Arena. Kyle Fiedler's done a great job managing that process. My hats are off to the IT folks for getting this out. Chantel Crossman, especially in communications, for now helping us get the word out. So this will be open. We would propose that we'll leave this open until about October 7th, and then the kits will then be able to be distributed on the 8th and 9th, ready for distribution on the 12th. So.
Okay. Commissioner Cruz?
Thank you. I wonder if we could, I'm trying to find that form right now, and I can't find it. So, and half of my day sometimes is spent helping people find links on our website. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if there's a way to, kind of clean this up a little bit so that people can find it. I mean, we have PPE resource requests, but that doesn't take me to the right place.
Yeah, if you go to
do you see the confusion that if somebody wants PPE, they go to our site and it says PPE request form? So let's just clean that up a little bit so it's easier for people to manage. So what is in the kit? Does it describe exactly what's in that, or is that based on your business needs?
All of the kits will have masks,
Like how many of each thing is going to be in each kit?
Let me give you the specifics on that because it is different depending on the size of the employee for the business. But it's masks, disinfectant, cleaners, hand sanitizer, a number of disinfectant wipes. We got a big tub that a whole bunch of wipes go in, bleach. There's some signage to help with social distancing. A number of things that any business could use, and I can give you a more detailed list of what's in all of them.
Okay, thank you.
And it depends on the size of your business.
Right.
And your application, how big a kit you get.
Right.
Okay. Does this need a motion to approve? You're just
No,
giving us an
it's
update?
Just
Thank
giving you an update that we're just about ready to get those out the door.
Okay. Well, I'll make a motion we receive and file the PPE kit program as presented. Motion is second. Any other questions? Being none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell? Commissioner Dennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz?
Aye.
Chairman Meitzner.
Aye. Thank you, Brent.
You bet.
Yes, Rusty, next.
Next phase is Mr. Fessinger.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mike Fessinger, Assistant County Counselor. For this portion of the presentation, we're going to be looking at two new subrecipient agreement templates that you've been provided. These two templates pertain to social services organizations and public health organizations. They are very similar in scope and form to other subrecipient agreements that you've already approved, and they were produced with assistance from our consultants, our auditors, and the County Department of Finance. As is the case with other such templates, we will use this form contract in conjunction with this board's approval of later grants so that we can efficiently get people, get these organizations paid. So I won't take up too much of your time this morning. I'll stand for any questions you might have, and it's my recommendation that you approve both templates.
Okay, Mike, thanks. And this is for, Mike, is this like a copy paste from others from Sir Whit O'Brien's experience around the country, or?
That's correct, yeah. We received,
Other templates?
We have their consultation, their templates, and then we have made alterations to comport with our county's boilerplate and things like that.
Okay. Would it be assumptive to, or would it be safe to assume that maybe the state and Johnson County will be using similar subrecipient agreements?
I wouldn't be surprised, but
Okay.
I guess I can't tell you for sure.
Okay. I'm just looking for consistency. If we've got some of our people with us, and then there's also applying
Right.
for a grant at the state level. Okay, well, I'd be a motion to approve the agreements as presented. If there's any questions? There'd be a second. Thank you, Commissioner O'Donnell. So, no other questions? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell? Commissioner Dennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz?
Aye.
Chairman Meitzner.
Aye. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Appreciate all the work.
Our
Next
CFO will
up.
present next.
Good morning, Commissioners. Lindsay Poe-Rousseau, your CFO. So I'm going to get the normal administrative stuff out of the way first. And so the first item we'll talk about is just a CARES and COVID spending update. And so this will be a receive and file item that we'll talk about first. So through last night, we have spent $24,868,282 total on COVID spending. That includes everything in the county's general fund and the fire district general fund and other revenues that we have received related to this. So the total in the general fund so far is $1,335,206. It's actually down about $2,000 from what I reported to you last week, and that's because of a cancellation of an incomplete order. Within the fire general fund, we still remain at just about $22,000 of spending. And then we also had $58,000 of spending that we've talked about many times now from the Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Fund for jail cleaning. So now let's get to the stuff everybody cares the most about, CARES coronavirus relief funds. So through yesterday, we have spent $20,283,917 of the county's direct allocation. That's up from about $19.7 million last week, so about a change of $519,000. The bulk of that is because we've had a payroll posting. So we have $73,000 for health temporary positions and the other temporary positions throughout the organization, another $46,000 for temporary employment services. If you recall, we've contracted out for a number of these positions for convenience. We have paid another $43,000 for the mandated Family First Coronavirus Relief Act leave. We have put in another $35,000 for software, primarily to buy more Zoom licenses for the county organization. Finally, the carts for those EMS Chevy Traverses that we've actually been using for a while, we were able to get contracts finalized and get those orders actually put in the system for $63,000. There was another $149,000 that was approved. If you all recall, a few weeks ago, you approved a whole body scanner for the sheriff's office. That cart was put into the system, and that commitment and order was made. There also was an order of about $45,000 for a temperature scanning device for the jail, which was something that the county manager authorized. And then we've had another $23,000 for a contract for some additional help in finance, for which we are extremely grateful. They are helping us with doing some shopping and also doing some reporting. So we'll get into some of those details here in a moment. And then the final difference there between what I've reported is basically we've bought cleaning supplies, we've had some miscellaneous cleaning services, and also some scattered remote work technology throughout the organization. Now, moving to support to outside of the county, still from our direct allocation, we're up to $8,442,683 in support to schools and cities. So when we talked last week, there were still a few cities that were working through the process. All of those but one have now made it through the process and their checks have been cut. There is one that has the agreement on their city council agenda this week, and so we anticipate that that payment will be made quickly. So that means that $3,494,765 has been paid out to schools. And then $4,947,917, has been paid out to cities. Just a reminder, schools got 100% of their funding on the front end. Cities got 50%. They're submitting information to us as they go for reconciliation and reporting, because we do have to report their expenses in certain categories under some Treasury guidance that came out at the beginning of September. So then, wrapping up the county CARES allocation, again, we started with $99,636,917. We spent that $20.3 million, so we are sitting at $79,353,000 exactly. So that's where we stand today. Now, in terms of spark spending, we did receive $9.3 million from the state. You all authorized that to go to business support, and so we are of that spending at $2,928,320. That's up just about $28,000 from last week, and that's for continued support for those PPE kits. And now that we have the workforce development programs authorized in small business grants, we'll start to see some more activity coming out of those in the coming weeks. And then finally, I consistently report to you on the status of the CARES funding, the HAVA funds, Help America Vote Act funds. Again, the Secretary of State authorized up to $420,000 of reimbursement to the Elections Office. Today, we stand at $240,993, but I know they have a plan to get through all of that by the election. So, and that's only up $498 from last week because of payroll for the 2 temporary positions that are being funded through that. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I recommend you receive and file this spending report.
Okay. I don't see any questions. Commissioner Cruz?
Thank you, Chairman. So I have just a couple of questions. On testing, I see that we have reduced our allocation from $25 to $20 million. And so where was that money allocated to?
And we'll get to, I have not gotten into the
Okay.
spending plan yet. This
Okay.
is just what we spent to date. I
Okay.
will get into that, I
will-
promise.
I will simmer down then. Thank you.
Well, it's good to know where you're going, though. Thank you for forecasting.
So, Commissioner O'Donnell?
Thank you. Lindsay, I see where we have the $1.5 million for WSU allocated. Do we need to make a motion to increase that amount?
So we will get to that portion
Okay.
if you'll bear with me in the
Yeah.
spending plan, and we'll talk through that because, yes, I think we want to do something there, but I'd like to give you the full background if that's okay.
Thanks.
My pleasure.
So I'll make a motion. This is the update on the current status where
Yes,
we're at.
that's
So I'll
it
make
for
a
now.
motion to receive and file your report.
Thank you.
Okay, been a motion and a second to receive and file the report. I don't see any other questions. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell? Commissioner Dennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz?
Aye.
Chairman Meitzner?
Aye. Okay, Lindsay.
Okay, now we'll get to the fun part. So if you'll bear with me, I'll talk quickly through some background just to kind of reset everybody to where we've been, and then we'll talk through the actual details of the spending plan, and then I will field all the questions. And thank you, commissioners, for telling me what you're going to ask about so I can make sure to hit those with some emphasis. So first of all, some background on where we have been, because I think it's really important to call out our team on this because they truly are incredible. So we certified our request for CARES funding to the federal government on April 15th. We received our funding on April 23rd. In that process, we started reaching out. We initially reached out to our auditor to say, help. We don't really do grant management. Help us. For independence reasons, they referred us to Widow Bryan's so that we could have that. So we started developing these contracts. We started work on developing this strategic plan for the spending of the $99.6 million in May. We did an original county needs assessment from June 1st through June 12th. The results back on that were that we had needs totaling $35 million internally for payroll, for temporary positions, plus $25 million for testing. And if I can remind everybody, at the time, that testing was the highest priority that we were hearing from schools and community members. And so that's why such a significant portion was dedicated there for the get-go, because that was intended to support the entire community. We learned that because of the notice of funding opportunity that was put out from June 5th through June 19th. We received 131 responses, totaling $66 million. Then we did a business needs survey to truly understand what the needs were that our community was facing at that time. That was done from July 20th through July 24th. We received 140 responses for $10.6 million. You all saw the first draft of this spending plan on July 1st. You approved it on July 8th. The plan was then modified on July 12th August 12th, because that was when we had to submit to the state our plan for how we wanted to spend the money they gave us. To date, I'm going to volunteer Tom up here. He had asked kind of for a status update. How are we doing? Are we gonna get this money out in time? He had checked with our consultants on that about 2 weeks ago. What we have consistently heard is that we are generally one step ahead, and that we're doing well. So I want to give you some reassurance on that. But here's where I want to brag on our team, because as a part of that status update, we looked at the volume of work we've done. Between the county finance and legal team that kind of make up the core group of this, we have worked nearly 10,000 hours since April to implement this, on top of them doing all of their normal job duties. In that time, you've approved an audit, you've approved a budget, there has been significant other work happening. So they have just done a tremendous job. This is nearly 4,000 transactions in our system just since April. And so I just want to give a huge thank you to that team. They are tired, they are stressed, but they have buckled in and they are doing phenomenal work. They know this is important stuff and they want to do it right. So my thanks to them. So I'll get off my soapbox now for a moment. And so with regard to today's proposal, we did reorganize a few categories because since this was adopted last July, we've gotten some more guidance from the Treasury Office of Inspector General on how we report information and the fact that we have to report projects, which means we have to have a specific goal in mind. And so we had some projects that maybe had a similar goal, and so we just collapsed those here. We have had 14 pieces of guidance since this came out. And again, because I'm a numbers person, that's 153 days, and we've had 14 pieces of guidance. So on average, every 9 days, we're getting some new rules. Some are great. Some are great new changes. Some are not as great, and cause us to have some panic phone calls with our consultants about what do we do now. So we do appreciate your patience. We know that this is, and we appreciate the community's patience. There's a lot going into this, and we want to make sure the county taxpayers are not at risk at the end of this. So, moving to the specific spending plan then, and that's what you have pulled up here. So, if it's okay, I'll briefly go through what changes we made, and then circle back for questions, if that's okay. All right, so the very first thing that we'll talk about is COVID-19 testing and contact tracing. So to date, we have actually spent just at $4.4 million of our allocation. Now, what I mentioned to you was back when we were doing the notice of funding opportunities, we heard that this was the highest priority need. Since then, it has also been the highest priority need for every other community. And so availability of machines, availability of being able to get samples, all of those things have been challenged for us. And so we simply don't think, based on timing, that we will be able to spend the full 25 allocation between now and December 30th. Now, to Commissioner O'Donnell's point about WSU, you all had taken some action to approve up to $1.5 million for equipment. We actually just had a call with WSU yesterday about all of the costs that it's taking for them to start up that program. And we've sent them a request for information to solidify some of the details to allow our consultants to go in and look at what would be eligible. We believe that could be up to $4 million. We do intend to come back to you, maybe even potentially before October 7th in a special meeting, to create a contract that would essentially allow us to start getting that reimbursement. Again, we have heard that they will be ready to open their lab October 1st. To my knowledge, that date still has not changed. We absolutely understand the Commission's directive that this be done quickly. And so in order to do that, we're going to try and get this eligibility knocked out in the next week or so, and then hopefully be able to bring a contract to you for approval for us to reimburse them, and then figure out how exactly we're going to proceed forward with that testing in the community. So that is the primary change there. Now that $4.4 million, yes, ma'am.
I'd like to ask a question about, so it says, I read in the email you provided to us in regards to all of these details, the WSU, they're asking for an additional $4 million?
It would be a total of $4 million, including that $1.5 million. I'm sorry for the confusion.
So, and they have asked from the state for $12 million. So their total program is $16 million?
I think it actually would be greater than that, because I believe $12 million was targeted for certain types of audiences. And then I believe they're still also trying to go out to health providers in the community and have them do these tests too. I think they have a very high-level plan that they want to do testing for schools. They want to do testing for businesses. Of course, people who are sick who want to go to the doctor, maybe they have a different type of program. We, of course, would have our own program that's operated through our health department. So my understanding is that it's not exclusive to just that $16 million.
So, like my physician is Newton Medical Center, and if I go get a COVID test there, how can we ensure that there's going to be the volume to spend all of this money to build a new complete lab? And I really just kind of want to play devil's advocate here, because to me it seems like it would be cheaper to prop up a lab that's already in production and already doing things rather than spend a lot of additional funds to build something from the ground up. And so I guess I understand the need to have something local, and I do support that. But when we're thinking of all this money and the plethora of needs in our community, is that the best way to spend this? So that's the question that I'm proposing. I'm saying it out loud so everybody can hear it. And if, I guess that's something I would like to understand. Like, who are they reaching out to? How do we know they're going to switch to their lab? Do they have the expected volume to be able to? Will they have enough work?
So I can try and answer from the best of my abilities, but I would love the opportunity to follow up with the WSU team after this and respond or provide that information from them. But from the call that we had yesterday, they are talking with Ascension, they are talking with Wesley, they are reaching out to other providers in the community to try and make sure that there is going to be that volume of testing. Again, trying to reach out to schools and businesses so maybe they're not just being funneled through healthcare providers. In terms of standing up a lab, I will tell you I have learned a lot about this that I never thought I'd have to know as a CFO. And that is, it's not really that easy to stand up a COVID-19 lab. You have to have things called CLIA. Don't ask me what it stands for, but I've heard it a lot. It's a certain certification that you have to have. You have to have these emergency use approvals through the FDA. WSU has been successful at getting those. There aren't that many labs, unfortunately, around the state that already have that type of designation. And so I think for where we are today and the fact that they have moved ahead and are ready to do it October 1st, I think that is what makes it the most cost reasonable approach from the county's perspective. If that helps.
To be fair, there are labs already doing the work.
Absolutely. Yes, there are private labs absolutely doing this work.
That's my question around testing. Well, I guess just one additional. So were you finished with?
I think I am.
Okay. I don't want to interrupt you. Excuse me. So the money that was then spent and allocated, so we've spent $4.3 million thus far. That leaves us around, $15.5 million left to spend. With the anticipation of the funds going to WSU, where would the other, $11 million go?
Sure. So what we still don't necessarily know today is what the sampling will look like, how we're going to actually get those tests and devices. We don't know what the winter season is going to look like, but certainly we're hearing that between flu and cold, there's going to be some increased demand for testing to try and understand, are you COVID or are you flu? We also have not yet been billed for the CRL lab in Lenexa, and we know that there's lots of activity happening there, so we anticipate costs on that front. And then any other costs that we have associated with bringing on the staff to actually do this work, because we know that the health department continues to try and bring on new people. So those temporary costs that I talked about before, we expect just to grow and grow between now and the end of the year. And then we'll have to figure out a strategy, because we know COVID won't just magically disappear on 12/31.
So is there a way, surely you have estimates around these costs. We're talking $15 million here. So, what is the anticipated cost for CRL? What is the anticipated cost for additional employees? Those kinds of things. Do you have that in a spreadsheet that we can see? So that we can see how close we're going to get to 20 million?
Yes. We use that information that Dr. Ablaw had presented several
months ago.
I don't even know now, I guess almost several months at this point. And so we've used that to do some modeling and some estimates that drive this. Now the personnel, I will tell you, is probably, we've erred on the safe side and estimated quite a bit of cost there, because we want to make sure this pot is protected, because this is the highest priority as far as what we understand from the commission as a directive.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Dennis?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As long as we're on testing, I got a lot of questions about testing. So, and Adrian may have to answer these questions for it. Is the contract in place with Lenexa right now?
Yes.
Are we sending things to Lenexa?
Yes.
Can they do both the nasal test and the saliva test?
Yes.
Very good. Are we doing the saliva tests?
And I'm saying this as someone who recently got tested. Yes. You do the nasopharyngeal but then you can do the saliva-based test while they're still validating those results to ensure that it's accurate.
What's our turnaround time on getting the results back from Lenexa?
2 days?
How many?
2 days. 2 days.
2 days.
Sorry, I'll project.
Okay. So I was tested Monday. I should find something out today?
Adrian is nodding her head yes.
Okay. Why wasn't I given both tests on Monday?
Adrian, I'm gonna step away. I've done the best I can. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners and Board of Health. Adrian Byrne, Health Director. Because you went to the mobile clinic and they were just set up to do the nasal swab.
Okay.
So it's the drive-through that is doing both, but we will get to that place where we're able to do that as well at the mobile clinic.
Okay. Are we validating the results between the two? Are we giving people both tests so that we can validate the accuracy?
And we are definitely looking at how we can be more efficient because the processes are very different and it takes longer for the saliva because of the registration process that has to happen with CRL. So we're finding it's very interesting that some people don't want to take the time to do the saliva and are actually requesting the NP swab so that they know that they'll be in and out of there within 5 or 10 minutes, where the saliva can take a good 15 or so because of the registration process, and it is just what it is right now. So we are working on, we are looking at how we can be more efficient, but are offering both.
Very good. One of our goals, our major goals, are to get people back to work and get students and teachers all back in the classrooms again. Are we set up right now so that we can do large numbers of testing? My concern is if one person comes up positive at a school, we could start closing down schools again. And if we could get in and do some mass testing as quick as possible, we can avert that possibility. So are we configured right now so that we could go into a business, a large business, so that they could make sure that their employees are safe and they can isolate the ones that are having testing positive? Can we go into a school and test the population of that school so that we can tell which ones are testing positive so we can keep the rest of them in school? I don't know where we're at on getting this mass testing done.
So that is phase 3, where, and we also have to ensure that CRL has enough of the kits where they can send. But our plan in phase 3, and hopefully in the next couple weeks, we'll work with nursing homes, schools, for football teams or whatever, so that they can actually register for those kits. They can receive them directly, administer, and then send back.
So we're still a couple weeks out from being able to do that?
And I say that loosely because I'm not exactly sure, but we are moving towards that. And so part of that will be ensuring that CRL has sufficient kits, depending upon the amount of demand that occurs. And at this point, when we're doing just the NP swabs, we can sample a good 500. And with the saliva taking a little bit longer, somewhere between 350 and 400. Now that's just through our drive-through, not counting the mobile clinic and our disease containment that go into the nursing homes, go into make it go into the schools or businesses. So we still have the ability to do more than that.
Well, I hate to hear 2 weeks. I'd rather you told me 2 days before we get to this point. So the sooner the possible, because again, you mentioned nursing homes, and I think that's critical that we can go in and identify the folks that are positive there. But getting our schools and our businesses going, that is our top priority. And testing is the top priority, and the only way that we're going to get this done is getting the tests in a quantity that we need in order to be able to open the businesses up and get the schools going.
I will get more information on that as far as what CRL can deliver in regard to kits, how quickly. and what our time frame is exactly to be able to work with the businesses and schools to have those kits sent directly.
Okay, but we talked about the Lenexa contract several weeks ago now, and that was our goal. That's what we were looking for, and now a couple weeks have passed, and we're still talking about a couple weeks in the future. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Commissioner Howell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple quick questions to follow up. I know Lindsay wants to go back and finish the briefing. I'm sorry for talking about testing so much, but it is relevant. I assume that if you do 2 tests on someone, if they are returned negative or positive, in either case, it only impacts our dashboard by a count of 1.
That's correct.
Okay. Dr. Abla, when she was here, talked a lot about, I think she was the one that talked about, we wanted to get to about 2,200 tests per day. And I know we've done much better in the last several weeks in terms of we've increased our number for the community. I'd say roughly around to about 800 tests per day, roughly. Maybe off just a little bit there, but it's about the right number, I think. I believe the WSU has kind of committed, if you will, to being able to do even more, basically up to that 2,000 tests per day. Is that correct that they've talked about that? Obviously, the processes will have to be different than what we're doing right now with CRL. So I'm questioning if CRL is only going to be for a couple of weeks until WSU is online. That problem may solve itself by just the nature that WSU is going to be able to do this much more streamlined and more efficient than what CRL can do. I'll just say this as more of a comment, but Kansas continues to be criticized, if you will, nationally because our test rates are still not what we would like to see them in terms of comparison to other states. And WSU, I think, has taken the bull by the horns and has provided, if you will, a vision for how to solve this problem in a very great way. But what we need right now is some certainty for them. And I think discussion about anything that says we're not going to continue to be community partners with them actually would cause them to tap the brakes. We don't want them to do that. We want them to hit the gas, hit the accelerator. And October 1st is a very sporty date. I hope that they make that date. But the reality is, I would love to have unused resources and available testing available that's not even being utilized. If we have, in other words, their capabilities needs to exceed, if you will, the community need. And right now, they're the only ones I think that bring that promise to the table. So I will stand by our commitment to them, and I think we need to not cause any concern about whether or not we're going to continue to be community partners with them. I understand that they are trying to market this to other care providers, I'm sure well beyond our local borders here, but that's fine. That's the model that makes this work for them, and to be able to stand up this lab. So the reality is, I think their model needs to have a steadfast commitment from the Sedgwick County, and for us not to question our path when we're literally a week from basically seeing this come online. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Lindsay and I, just to hopefully close with the, so we're taking the original bucket that we approved. You've had a chance to have a few months of applications and a few months of analysis and a few months of input, and now you're presenting the third column as basically the new adjustment of what you want to reallocate the balance and plus or minus in some of these buckets.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and so I think we can go through this. I'll just close by my personal thought is that I unless something's changed, I think we were looking at funding basically the hardware and the setup for WSU because it would stay within the county, and I think the Spark money is for actually the cost of the testing, which can go statewide, regional-wide, everything else. So that's why there's two different plans, because we need to keep ours within the county, and as Commissioner Howell said, set it up and the 2-day, eliminate the 2-day transportation. So I was at an event this weekend, and I got my results in 2 hours because they had a testing van. They had a mobile van on site, and so it was a 2-hour turnaround. So I know that it can be done. It's being done, and I think that's where we're heading. So I'll just add my 2 cents worth, so to speak. So if you want to continue on.
I certainly will. And just to that point that you just mentioned, Chairman, what we have been told by WSU is to the extent we do fund the equipment and the startup costs, which it also includes, the cost to actually stand up the facility. So maybe some facility costs and some consulting costs and some of those things. If we fund all of that, depending on what we fund, they're going to be able to go back in and reduce down the per test rate, and that simply buys more capacity for the region. So that, I think, is how that will work, to answer, I think, Commissioner Cruz's earlier question. So that is probably the most significant adjustment within the county's bucket. If you recall, we do have county buckets and then we have external buckets. So the county bucket was at $60.5 million before. We're proposing this $58.5 million here. So that testing is a big part of that change, going from 25 to 20 million. We also have revised down the EMS and public health response and public safety facility categories based on what we've actually seen happen and the fact that at this point we've actually been able to purchase or at least encumber the funds for nearly everything that's been requested either from the sheriff, from EMS, or from corrections, based on discussions with our financial assistance team through last week. We also have revised down our building and retrofit cost. What we're seeing, and you'll see this on the increased category, what we're actually seeing is a lot more short-term, maybe not short-term, less involved work to make workspaces safe. It's just spacing out cubicles. It's adding more abilities to do remote work and things like that. We're not seeing as much overhaul to the facilities itself that we had expected. So those are some decreases. Now on the flip side, we've had increases to certain programs. So as we talked about, payroll costs have been adjusted based on the value of temporary positions. So it's not just testing that we are seeing increases in. It is in the entire infrastructure for the health department, for finance. We've had some additional positions for HR, so we've increased costs there. Now, we've also had some federal guidance that has loosened up personnel. And so we know that originally we had only focused on CommCare crisis being able to be something that could be reimbursed. What we're understanding is that actually if they're providing a mental health frontline service, that is something that's eligible. And so we've added that additional cost into this bucket on top of what you all had already approved. We have not gone any further at this point that the guidance would allow us to. We also, as you can see in the notes on the document, our Family First Coronavirus Relief Act funding, we are asking to increase that from $500,000 to $750,000. When this first started, we were seeing roughly $15,000 per pay period. That amount is up to about $40,000 per pay period now, as I just reported in my COVID spending status update. We suspect a lot of that is because of the school situation and the fact that some of that leave can be used if your child's school is closed. You can get 2/3 of your rate of pay for that, so that's why we expect that increase. So we've increased the bucket there. IT has also been increased due to remote work technology. So we've talked about Zoom licenses. Lots of people are adding webcams. People are getting laptop computers to take home and things like that. And as long as we're not replacing an existing asset, that's an okay use of CARES. So we've increased that. Obviously, as we've talked every time I give you an update on spending, I tell you we're buying custodial supplies or PPE. And so we revised that up significantly. And then, again, because we're doing more of those less intensive adjustments to workspaces, the building retrofit information has gone down, but the building safety measures have gone up because that's the bucket that we're accounting for then. And again, we've realigned these categories based on what we're reporting to the federal government as projects with a specific goal. So you can see, again, the totals here by category. Again, that total comes to $58.5 million. That is $2 million less in the county bucket than what was approved back on 7/8. So if we're okay with that, I will move to the next category.
Commissioner Cruz?
Thank you. I don't really have a question around funding. My question kind of arises out of the Family First Medical Leave Act. So as a county, how many employees have been out? So I know you can't answer this question right now, and I'm not expecting you to, but I'd like to have that information presented or sent out to us commissioners and anybody who wants it, as far as how many employees, Sedgwick County employees, fire district employees have been impacted and are out due to a positive test or exposure. If you could get that info to me.
Yeah, I can definitely get you the number. I'll have to work with HR to figure out if we can break it out by that category.
Okay, and then from a financial standpoint, how many of our own employees are utilizing these funds? I guess it would
Well,
be
all of this cost is us only.
okay, yes,
So,
yes,
so
yes,
far,
okay.
since this went into place at the beginning of April, we've had
So how
$365,000
many
of actual
employees
cost.
would be
And I can get that for you
okay,
quickly.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on the county plan, or I'll move to the next few buckets?
Yep.
Okay, so then we will shift gears into the other categories. So before I get into those, I'm actually going to hop down a little bit here to the very bottom of this list, and I will show you that the reserve that used to be about $12 million no longer exists. We had held that back because we did not know what the next few months were going to bring. We did not know if the act would be extended to allow us to spend money past 12/30. And so we had held back $12 million. We've had some pretty earnest conversations with our consultants, and they've basically said, go ahead and plan to spend it. So that's what we're bringing back to you here, is a reallocation of that $2 million out of the county's bucket, plus this $12 million. So that is $14 million that's now been spread throughout the rest of these categories. So looking at governmental assistance, we had been at $10.1 million for cities. We have heard feedback from a couple cities. We also had results back in the notice of funding opportunity that not all cities' requests were fully funded. And so this would put another $4.9 million in assistance to the city governments. We would propose to distribute that the same as we did before, which is on a per capita basis, which is the same way the funds were distributed to us. And since they are entities of local government, it has been deemed a reasonable approach for us to take on this. So that is proposal number one. Again, 17 of 19 cities that were eligible have participated in the program. And we would simply just amend their agreement to increase those dollars and get those dollars available to them either through an advance, as we already have, for 50% of their funding, or we can allow a reimbursement model. I think we would prefer the reimbursement model for monitoring purposes, but certainly can talk through that with commissioners if necessary. So then moving to educational assistance, this focused again on K-12. And so your notice of funding opportunity that went out actually generated more than $20 million worth of requests from schools. But at that time, a lot of that was based on standing up remote learning. And we've seen that there has been other funding that's come in to assist with that. There's still some need, but we have not seen as much need, I don't think, in the conversations that we've had with schools, or that I've heard about with schools, to justify that much. So we would propose to increase their bucket from $3.5 million to $5 million. What we have heard from the federal government is that up to $500 per student, we actually don't have to collect invoices or reimbursement information. We just have to know categories of how they've spent it. And at the peak, if you remember, everybody got a little bit of a different allocation because of the approach we took to schools. The peak funding that has gone to schools so far is only $150. And so we are still well within a threshold where doing this type of additional increase wouldn't create any burden for the county. So we could choose to do that on a per student basis, or could add in, try and take another approach similar to what we did last time with a baseline dollar amount and dollars on top of that. And if that's something the commission would like to do, we can come back on October 7th with recommendations. Otherwise, my recommendation is just to do it on a per pupil basis to keep it simple, given where we are in our timeline.
Okay. Commissioner Cruz?
Thank you. So what would the per pupil basis be?
I apologize, that would be, sorry, I'm going to do math on you.
So it would be uniform per district, not based on how many students they had.
Well, it would be based on how many pupils they have.
Right,
We would
but
take this,
before
right,
we had-
before it was varied. It would be roughly another $19 per student.
From their original allocation, or they would all
Up
be?
above their original allocation.
Okay, so you're saying that if we gave one school district $150 per student, they would get an additional on top of that of $16, so
19,
19,
yes.
excuse me. I guess I'd really like to dive into that, because Wichita
Okay.
Public Schools, they only got, what was their can you send those back out?
Yes.
Of all the allocations?
Yes, and we'll just plan to bring this back up on October
Okay.
7th, and I can circulate some options for you before
Yeah,
then.
I'm not ready to say yay for the allocation of that spending. I think this needs more discussion.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm fine with that if the rest of the commission is. Are you
Yeah, but
comfortable
this
with
is still-
increasing the
this is-
allocation,
This is
though?
the bucket.
Right.
You're
This is
still-
the bucket, right,
you
but
don't
I'm
know how
saying as far as the allocation for districts.
Yep, we'll hold off on
Student districts,
doing that
yes.
until October 7th then.
Yes.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
Okay, so then going to the next category here, public health. So with public health and social services, you can see here that we had specific programs that we were targeting under each of those buckets because of what we thought we heard from the notice of funding opportunity, and then also the feedback that we'd heard from the commission, especially for assisted living or senior care facilities. What we have seen through actual applications is that sometimes these dollars actually cross over. Sometimes the need maybe is a health-based need, but it's for a social service agency. And so rather than trying to keep firm to these buckets and add that additional hardship potentially or running out of money, we've simply removed funding to specific programs, and we have gone for public health from $6.5 million total to $10 million total. And for social service providers, we've gone from $7 million total to $8 million total. And so this would increase the overall allocation from $13.5 million to $18 million. And what we believe, you heard Brent earlier talk about those requests. Now, of those requests, at least one is for a significant capital improvement project need. And what we understand is that that was for a hospital. Hospitals actually got provider relief funding, and we have confirmed that that provider relief funding may be used for capital projects, and it may be used into next year as opposed to our CARES funding. And so if we exclude that, there's a good chance that we would be able to fund the overwhelming majority, if not all, of those public health and social service eligible asks that have come in so far. And so this is also something that I think you heard from your review team, that they would like some additional funding to be able to allocate. We know that these are targeting vulnerable populations, those maybe who are most likely to be affected by COVID. And so that's why we are recommending that $4.5 million increase here.
Okay, Commissioner Cruz?
Thank you. Just real quickly, so these applications have closed?
Yes, they closed this last Sunday.
So will we be getting the same information like we received for the small business grants as far as who applied?
I think you'll actually be receiving even greater information on who the review team is actually going to recommend to you to approve.
Okay.
As Brent said, I think they're meeting tomorrow, and then they have that special meeting on Monday to go through and apply the criteria and the prioritization they've talked all with you all about. And then Brent will bring to you on October 7th recommended funding for those groups, and that's why you approve those template agreements today.
Okay, and I just want to say that I have heard great feedback as far as having those discussions online. People appreciate being able to listen in, so I'm thankful that we're doing that, and I know that there's been some technology challenges with that as well, but I think that that's really great for the public to be able to listen in on those conversations. Thank you.
All right, Lindsay?
Okay, so then, like I said, the reserve is gone. And so we'll jump into the economic revitalization. So most of this has already kind of been discussed with Brent's earlier discussion. So we'll keep this fairly simple. So the state allocated $9.3 million to Sedgwick County on the basis of high unemployment, because unfortunately for a while we were the highest unemployed community in the state of Kansas. Well, and yes, although the numbers have gone down, which is great. But you're right, still not where we definitely want to be. So that is why you all had approved this bucket of funding. Now, in communications from the community and communications from commissioners, we know that there is greater need than just the $9.3 million that we receive from the state. And so what we have done is we have taken a portion of the county's CARES funding and we have allocated that to supplement these programs. And so I'm going to make this screen kind of small, and I apologize, but I think all of this information is important. So what we are proposing to do is add an additional $3.1 million to your $9.3 million bucket to bring the overall total program support to businesses to $12.4 million. Now, of that, we would take your $5 million Safe Operating Grant Program and make that $7.5 million. That would give us the potential to do 1,500 grants. Again, those used to be small business grants. Now they're just business grants. And as Brent talked before, that is the level where the consultants have told us we don't have an obligation to go in and do active monitoring on these businesses to look at their actual records and to monitor how they're using those funds to get receipts and all of that. Not to say there can't still be spot audits by county staff, not to say that the OIG couldn't come in and try and pull a selection down the road. With any federal money, there are strings. But this definitely mitigates that risk. So that is the goal for round 2, is to open this portal, which you've already authorized through October 7th. And then we would increase the scope of the program. If there is funding left at the end of the grant period, then in the next 2-week period, we'd be working with our consultants to develop an alternative strategy to get those dollars out. Commissioner Dennis, you alluded to one of those potential strategies. We'll be talking with them about a whole scope of options.
Commissioner Dennis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, your comment, if there's funds left, worries me. I don't know if we can move a little bit over to another bucket to make sure that there are funds left at the end. But I would hate for us to go through this entire next bucket and then not be able to get into some of those large venues that I talked about earlier.
I think certainly we could hold back a portion and maybe set aside a reserve and come back to you with a proposal, since I think we're already talking about the need to discuss on October 7th what we're going to do with the school allocation, for example. We could come back and revisit this part of the spending plan, and maybe we set aside some dollars. Well, what I will tell you is that yesterday we did have a chance to talk with kind of the audit side. So Wood O'Brien's does the eligibility, BKD does the audit. Those folks are concerned about doing a whole lot of additional grants, even if we do hire bank, because at that point, the county is still responsible for the monitoring. And I think that was a piece that maybe we had not fully understood when we started those discussions. We had maybe thought the bank could do that monitoring for us. It appears that maybe that can't happen. And so we're going to talk about that with our entire group of consultants Friday morning at 10. And so I feel like we can come back to you with a much more informed recommendation, maybe as early as Monday of next week, after we have a chance to talk to them about what would be some options, how could we control that or mitigate the risk to what would be an acceptable level for us to be able to take on and monitor ourselves, if that's okay.
Oh, no, that's fine. I intend to support your revised spending plan when we come to a vote, but I just wanted to make sure that what I talked about earlier you're still considering.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
You're the bosses, and we know it.
Commissioner Cruz?
Oops.
Thank you, Chairman. I have to agree. I've had multiple conversations with Wave Cotillion, with Alex Thomas, with a lot of different owners here, and I reached out to Susie Santo as far as trying to figure out what would happen to our economy if we had small businesses shutter. Some information that I've received from Wave especially is that $1 spent on a ticket is $12 in return to our community. So it's important, I think, that we understand that some of these businesses have personal guarantees on the loans that they're responsible for right now, and so my concern would be that if we open this up to all businesses, who are the businesses that are most hurting, that aren't able to recover? Are we going to determine with this money who is at greatest risk of closure, and how can we determine whether, what is the criteria to say whether who gets this money or not. And so I think that's really important. So I guess at the end of the day, we're really only adding 2.5 million additional to this fund. And if we could, I would like to make a motion that we open up the small business grants for the remainder of the $5 million that was originally allocated, keeping that 2.5 million that we're adding additional to this in case we have those that need more money than $5,000. I'm willing to take the risk. I'd like for us to determine what it means if these businesses shutter. If it's a 20% shuttering, if it's a 30% shuttering of these businesses, that's going to be a huge chunk to our economy that we're not going to have. And so I'd like to talk about that. Is that something that I'd like to make a motion, and I'm making it right now, that we open it for the remainder of the balance for the $5 million, reserving $2.5 million for round 3.
Okay.
I've made that motion.
Okay. Is there a second? Commissioner Cruz, I don't see a second, so we'll stay with the plan that has presented so far from Lindsay.
Okay. All right, so the next item is PPE kits. That would stay flat with what it is today. As Brent said, our purchasing team has done a phenomenal job of really getting their bang for the buck and have doubled the number of kits that we thought we would be able to give out. So we don't have any recommended change there. And as he presented with that workforce development program, we had originally bucketed $1.3 million for that. We did receive 3 proposals, and the recommendation is to fund all 3. And so that would require some additional funding, and so that would take $637,829 of county cares to supplement that and increase that. So again, overall for that economic revitalization, we continue to have the full $9.3 million from the state dedicated to those programs, and we have another $3.1 million added from the county's CARES allocation. So now what you'll see at the very bottom here, and I want to make sure to highlight it, and I want to say great work to Brandy Bailey. She, of course, manages our investment portfolio. And so you heard me earlier talk about how we received $99.636 million, and we did. But then we got that money invested, and even with some of the exceptionally low interest rates we're seeing, we have generated an extra roughly $47,000 of an investment income on those. And so the CARES guidance that has come out from the Treasury says we must spend any of that investment income on these same types of programs. And so those dollars plus the entire allocation of the $99.63 million have been spread across all of these buckets. And so if you'll bear with me, here's the motion I'm going to ask you to approve. If you would approve this proposal as modified to have that allocation on schools discussed on October 7th and reopen the grant program as described, and authorize and reallocate budget authority as needed to match the plan. So if I can get a so moved.
So moved.
Thank you.
So moved. Is there a second? I'll second that. So there's a motion and a second to the approval as presented. Commissioner Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say thank you for excellent work. You talked about the staff's investment and all of the work that's been done, and it really shows. So I want to say thank you. This looks like a really good plan. The only thing, I don't love everything about it, but I do like most of it. And I'm certainly going to support the motion this morning. The one item on here that I think I have some concern over is the lack of a reserve fund. It seems like everything is now allocated everywhere, and there's really not much latitude for us to redirect money. Maybe we still can. I don't know how much we have control over that in the future, but it seems like we don't really have a plan for a reserve fund at this point. And I know there's still a couple of months left this year for us to receive, if you will, other needs we may not even know about right now. So that's a concern of mine. But other than that, I think it's a really good plan. I want to say thank you for all your great work and your staff as well. It's really impressive. Appreciate all you're doing.
Thank you. I'll make sure they know that. And I would tell you, this is your spending plan, so you may change it whenever you tell us, bring it up.
Okay. Any other comments? Being none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell? Commissioner Dennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell? Commissioner Cruz?
No.
Chairman Meitzner.
Aye. Motion carries 4-1. Commissioner Howell?
Thank you.
Lindsay, are you-
I believe this is the end of the 3 items we talked about with item G. Is that correct? Okay. Mr. Chairman, I would like to have a brief discussion about a proclamation that I have drafted. I don't know if you want to consider this as part of item G, because it does relate to coronavirus, or we can just make this off-agenda item, and I think that might be cleaner. I've been working on this since staff meeting last week.
Commissioner, do you want to make a motion
I
to
will.
take
I'm
an
just
off-agenda
describing
item?
the subject matter so we know what the motion is going to be about. This is related to a discussion we started 8 days ago at staff meeting relating to long-term care facilities. And so with that, I'd like to present this proclamation for discussion and potential vote. And so I make a motion for an off-agenda item related to that.
There's a motion and a second for an off-agenda item related to a resolution.
Proclamation.
Madam, any other questions? Being none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell? Commissioner Dennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz?
Aye.
Chairman Meitzner.
Aye. Commissioner Howell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just start off by saying that this came to my attention by community members that have been struggling with numerous situations in long-term care facilities and hospital settings. And although we have seen a few news items in the last few days that were promising, CMS, for example, has come out with new guidelines. And that is very encouraging. There's still some challenges, I think, with what they presented. But I would make the point that whether or not long-term care facilities adopt any of those guidelines is really a sovereign choice by the facility itself. They don't have to follow what CMS tells them to do in terms of they have to follow laws, but they are allowed to be more restrictive than was what CMS has recommended. Hospitals also have changed their policies in the last week. Basically, our data in the community is good enough. I think that the hospitals have chosen to allow some care advocates to accompany the patients within the hospital. I want to say thank you to them for what they've done. Nevertheless, this is a pretty hot item. I would base that on the fact that the number of people have reached out to me with seems like countless stories of issues that have gone on in the community that have been, in my opinion, very heartbreaking. I would just say up front that what I'm proposing today is a proclamation. It does not have any it's not a controlling policy. This is simply an advocacy or a request, if you will, for a review of care facilities to review their policies, to try to accommodate to the best of their ability an opportunity for visitors or family or care advocates to have an interactive relationship with their patients, or with whatever that means. So I'd like to read the proclamation real quickly. So take just about a minute or two. I started this like 8 days ago. I did give a copy of this to my colleagues last Friday. It was amended on Monday, and my colleagues have had a copy of it in their possession since Monday, so it has not had any changes since then. With that, let me go ahead and read the proclamation. It says, whereas seniors or older adults make up 11.4% of the Sedgwick County population and are expected to make up roughly 20.8% by the year 2044. And whereas some of these residents may live in one of the 130 care homes and skilled nursing facilities in Sedgwick County. And whereas, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, older Americans are at higher than normal risk of solitude and isolation. And whereas approximately 60% of Sedgwick County COVID-19 deaths are associated with long-term care facilities, and 70% of Sedgwick County deaths were hospitalized with COVID-19. Whereas professional staff that provide care to patients and residents do their very best to provide excellent care in settings that are naturally prone to a higher incidence of viral infection, and whereby staff must be vigilant to adhere to best practices, such as wearing effective personal protective equipment, surface decontamination efforts, and personal hand hygiene. And whereas families and friends desire to be close to one another during this time and want to interact with their loved ones that are receiving care. And whereas there is well-documented harm being done to residents of long-term care facilities, assisted living facilities, and patients in emergency rooms and hospitals and their families, both physically and mentally, by COVID-19 policies that bar family members from their loved ones' bedsides. And whereas the Sedgwick County Commission, sitting as the local Board of Health, encourages balanced visitation policies that recognize the care facilities need to protect staff and other people in their facilities while providing for the patients patients and residents that have a right to personal care advocate in their presence. And whereas research clearly shows that residents and hospital patients should have access to family member, friend, or personal advocate in these environments, and the aforementioned facilities should take all the health precautions necessary with regard to PPE when implementing these visitation policy guidelines. Now therefore be it resolved that Chairman Peter F. Meitzner and the Board of Sedgwick County Commissioners do hereby proclaim advocacy for residents wanting to be with loved ones and strongly encourage Sedgwick County hospitals, emergency rooms, long-term care facilities, and assisted living facilities to review and update their policies with the aim of implementing alternatives that would allow family members, friends, or caregivers to be with the patients or residents in these stressful, frightening situations. Mr. Chairman, I could talk a long time on this. I've got a lot of information in front of me. I'm not going to do that unless the discussion warrants it. But Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we would adopt this proclamation and that we would have staff communicate this proclamation by letter or by email to the care facilities throughout Sedgwick County.
Okay. Motion is second. Commissioner, I agree with, I personally have a 92-year-old aunt that I have to really struggle to visit personally. But the basis of your proposal, the whereas is, I think traditionally we've given factual information such as the value that these hospitals, emergency rooms, long care facilities, assisted living, the number of employees, the factual information is not in there. There's not an appreciation for their for the services that they provide. It just talks about the harm being done. They don't reference, nothing in here references that all these facilities are state licensed. They abide by federal regulations. So it's vastly lacking in factual information that recognizes the true value that that the workers do to help care for these patients that we're trying to do. No reference to the training, certification, et cetera. So with that, I'm going to make a substitute motion that we as a county commission get to review this personally and take the efforts that you have taken to come up with a little bit cleaner resolution that recognizes the value, plus encourage what they may already be reviewing anyway. So I'm going to make a motion that we defer this till the next meeting to allow the commission to review.
Second, I'll explain my second later on. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Cruz?
I think Commissioner O'Donnell has.
Commissioner O'Donnell, I'm sorry. Commissioner O'Donnell, yeah.
Either way is fine.
I'm sorry.
But, no, not a problem, Mr. Chairman. So last Thursday, the Center for Medicaid released their new guidelines, which has at least laid out a roadmap for resuming indoor visits based on COVID-19 and the spread, because they recognize the importance of meeting residents' psychological needs. It's not a home run by any stretch, but it definitely moves us in the right direction. When we had talked about this last week, I had mentioned a meeting that I set up between advocate Janie Carney, who is just a champion for Alzheimer's and dementia citizens in our area and across the state of Kansas. I had set up a meeting with her and our Attorney General Derek Schmidt, and I'm going to read what Mrs. Carney put out on her Facebook just yesterday, that we are making substantial progress in this area. So she says, and this is Janie Carney, she says, Confession. Last week, the call from Topeka that I spoke of came from Attorney General Derek Schmidt to tell me, by the way of his cell phone, hours after the release of CMS directives, that I should be on the lookout for the transformation of visitation policies across the country, but most importantly, here in Kansas. Although he's a humble man, he didn't claim the responsibility for the change, but I knew in my heart there was no way he could have known so quickly. It was he that I met with in Topeka, along with his key staff. Now it's been 3 weeks ago. Not long after my blog post Out of Sight, which had been circulated far and wide, I made calls, followed instincts, and roads led to the Attorney General. What started out as prudence in the lockdown of nursing homes morphed into the violation of constitutional rights. Sadly, the one who sits in our head seat of the state was of no help. Luckily, one of the calls garnered a meeting with the much-admired Attorney General Derek Schmidt. This was the call that I had with Mrs. Carney and called the General's cell phone myself. What I thought would be a glorified in-person type of phone call was anything but. He and his staff welcomed me with compassion, respect, full of questions, while listening to every word I had to say. I've met many that serve in elected positions, but my impression of this man and his commitment was definitely at the top of the list. As I spoke, his eyes projected the feeling that he had accepted the responsibility of every individual suffering under these restrictions. When I left, I knew I had just met someone special. He is the heart of a Kansan to protect his fellow man and the strength of a general to win the battle. Many do not know the distinction of Derek Schmidt's tenure. Last year, he was voted the 2019 Attorney General of the Year. Our own elected official from Kansas spearheaded one of the most comprehensive state-sponsored legal actions regarding human trafficking in the country. And that is not all the accolades I could list. Quietly, without regard to notoriety, the country moves with his faith-filled passions against injustice. Yes, lawsuits were beginning to surface across the country, but Derek Schmidt's regard as a powerful voice makes things happen. He may not have said it, but I always believe that he played a major role in rejoining our families with our loved ones. He defended our rights, afforded by the only document in the world that guarantees our freedom as a written one, the United States Constitution. Please join me in my gratitude. Thank you, Attorney General Derek Schmidt. And then she signs it. I wish to extend a special thank you to the continued efforts of Anne Hathaway. She is carrying the torch of people. We are not done yet, but we are miles ahead of where we were 3 weeks ago. Continue to keep the faith and diligence until then. The mountain is being moved. And then she said thank you to me for helping set that up. So anyway, I feel like we are moving in the right direction, and there's nobody that knows more about this than Mrs. Carney, for sure, with the memory care side of things when it comes to residents and memory care facilities here in Sedgwick County and across the state. So I do feel like we are moving in the right direction. So thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Cruz?
Thank you, Chairman. I am supportive of the advocacy, and I would support this proclamation with the removal of the mention of our hospitals and emergency rooms. And the reason why is because I asked this specific question on Monday with our hospital systems, and they are allowing one advocate per person. They have also always allowed advocates for pregnant and women and also children. So I guess that's kind of where I'm at with this as far as the language that's written in here. I am also concerned about when I first read it, it was really sort of long-term care facilities are only doing harm. And that's kind of how it came across to me. And so having a little bit of conversation back and forth with Commissioner Howell, that's kind of what I expressed to him. I think it's important for us to understand, and I've been in a lot of these residences, and I think it's important that we recognize that what they're trying to do is protect their population of the most vulnerable in this community. And so that's why I'll be supportive of the substitute motion today to reword this so that it fits what exactly we're trying to accomplish, but recognizing the work that's already being done. The other thing is, I think this advocacy goes well beyond this proclamation. It goes well beyond this. Phone calls with, I spoke with an activity director at Catholic Care Center last night. She mentioned that the majority of this, the stages that they're in, specifically at Catholic Care Center, is due to staff coming up positive with COVID. And so this honestly is a larger community effort as far as reducing the spread of this virus, understanding how we can get people to try to protect their fellow neighbors and folks who do work in these facilities so that they don't come down with this virus and then set each of these facilities back in trying to move forward. So that's kind of where I stand on this. I'm absolutely for advocating for seniors and their family members. I just think it goes well beyond this proclamation.
Okay. Commissioner Howell or Commissioner Dennis? Commissioner Dennis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'd like to explain why that I seconded the motion to defer this. First of all, it's been some time back, a month or so ago, that I brought this up because I had a discussion with a lady that whose father-in-law is in a nursing home and they can't communicate with them. So it is an issue that I'm concerned about, and so I don't want to take anything away from that. I'm concerned that we continue to try and build sausage from the bench, and that's what happens when you have off-agenda items. We have a policy on proclamations, and everybody knows what the policy is on proclamations, but again, we're trying to develop something from the bench, and that's not the way that we ought to be governing. The other thing is, if we followed the process, we would have staff involved in this. We would be able to go through and find out from legal what all the ramifications and so forth are. I don't know how many of you are aware, but the 42 CFR, which stands for Code of Federal Regulations, and 42 is Public Health. What it deals with, the entire CFR, and it's 20-some pages long, deals with residents' rights. And it says one of the exercise of rights, the facility must ensure that the resident can exercise his or her rights without interference, coercion, discrimination, or reprisal from the facility. It goes on to talk about the facility must provide immediate access to a resident by immediate family and other relatives of the resident subject to the resident's right to deny or withdraw that. Then there's a number of them. I could read all of these different rights. One of the recent changes to that, and one of the other items, is that the facility must provide immediate access to residents by others who are visiting, subject to reasonable clinical and safety restrictions, and the resident's right to deny or withdraw that consent at any time. All of these facilities are governed by federal law, there's state laws, and we're going to have a feel-good resolution that I don't know that really meets the needs of our elderly, and I don't want to take anything away from the needs of our elderly. This past week, I started looking at some different types of assisted living facilities for one of my relatives that I'm going to need to move here to Wichita to help. And I asked the question as I was looking at these facilities, and there are different types of facilities based on what the needs are of the individual that's going to go into those facilities. We've got memory care units, which have a completely different set of issues involved in taking care of people that need memory health. We have some very highly skilled nursing facilities for long-term care facilities. And we have just assisted living facilities where the people don't have quite the limitations that other folks do. And then we have the hospitals on top of that have a lot of rules and regulations that are involved in it. So deferring this until we can have a good grasp on what is the action that we need to take in order to help the seniors, and I'm definitely an advocate for the seniors. That's why I brought it up some time back, but I don't think that trying to develop something from the bench as an off-agenda item is the direction to go at this time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Commissioner Howell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me just provide the timeline once again. So last Tuesday, week ago, 8 days ago, I made a plea to my colleagues. By the way, since we're under Kansas Open Meetings Act, we can't just have conversations in the hallway. The time for us to speak as a group is in a public open meeting, and I adhere to that religiously. So I brought this up at a staff meeting 8 days ago, and I made a plea. In fact, during that time, I also asked for staff's help to prepare a proclamation. I received a draft copy of that proclamation on Thursday at 4:49 p.m. It did not, in my opinion, meet the intent of what I was trying to do, so I asked for an opportunity to edit that and make some changes. I did provide that back to staff on Friday at 5 p.m. Unfortunately, the agenda was released without this placeholder. Excuse me, my throat is persistently, I have to clear my throat once in a while. I apologize for that. Nevertheless, there was no placeholder on the agenda for this item, even though it was clear to everyone, I think, that it was my intent to have this discussed today. I received comments from one commissioner, and it was primarily a concern, I believe, that it looked like we were basically being negative towards care homes, and it's not my intent at all. I love what they do. In fact, let me just reflect on that for just a quick moment. As I've said before, you all know my mom passed away a year ago. I spent 3 years visiting my mother in a care home here locally, and without the family at her side, I assure you her care would have not been as good. I love what the care home provided. They do the very best they can. They they bathe, they feed, they do everything that's necessary for them to survive there. But what the family provides was, if you will, we would check her mood. We would ask for medicine when she needed it. We would spoon feed her when she needed it. We would have her check out for UTI when she needed it, and on it goes. When she was dehydrated, we would help her with that. There's numerous things that happened during those 3 years that caused me to understand that families are a critical part of care. And although these care facilities are doing the things that are absolutely necessary in terms of taking care of the physical needs of these patients, they are limited. They don't have enough staff generally. Generally, the staff, in my opinion, is not paid. But I'd love to see them get paid more. I know that's always been a challenge. And on it goes. But last March, without much notice, these care homes basically closed their doors. There have been people who've reached out to me that said for 6 months, they've not been able to see their family member. Sometimes these residents don't have hearing aids, or they can't communicate well. They have dementia and Alzheimer's. And the things that are being provided to them are telephones. You talk to someone over the phone. It doesn't work well. Or talking through a window. It doesn't work well. The staff, again, they are human beings too. They go home to their families. They interface with people outside the care home. They go to restaurants. They go to grocery stores. They do shopping. I'm sure they do all kinds of things that all of us do. And they go back and they provide care. With PPE and best practices, they do their very best to protect that staff. Family members, in my opinion, should be considered, if you will, a critical care component. In fact, Commissioner Dennis just referenced the federal law 42 CF. Federal law 42. I won't read the whole reference. But it's about patients' rights, and within that, and he read parts of it. It is in there. There's a little bit of case law, if I understand correctly, about whether or not someone has a right to visit at any time they want to, or whether or not visitation hours should be honored. So that went to court. But let's talk about that. There's people who are in our community who have not been able to visit their loved ones for months on end. And it does talk about that they have a right. And their rights don't cease just because they're in a nursing home or just because they're in a pandemic. Their rights should be honored. It says in here in that federal law that the patient has a right for a resident representative to visit them personally and physically in the home. Let me go a little bit further. There's another law, or I should say regulation, Kansas Administrative Regulation KAR 2639-103. And it says that immediate family members, the patient has a right to have immediate family or other relatives of the resident have a right to visit that person. The resident can say they don't want to have a visit from someone. They have the right to refuse a visit, and that's no problem. But if they want to have an advocate with them, they have a right under KAR 2639-103 to have that person with them. I just want to say we provide all the and by the way, I've talked to people who have been struggling with this. They're saying, look, I will do everything you tell me to do. I'll be tested. I'll put on the PPE. I'll do everything possible to be able to be recognized as a critical part of this person's care. and yet they're just basically pushed to the side. Now, not all facilities are doing that. A number of facilities have changed their policies. To the comment that Commissioner Cruz made, to the hospitals and care homes that are making accommodations, this doesn't apply to them. This is only applicable, one of the whereases, and I stressed it when I read it, this is applicable to the care homes and facilities that bar family members from their loved ones' bedsides. It doesn't recognize their right under the law. There's people that are being harmed. I'm not trying to be negative, but it's just a truth. And so this is not a law in and of itself. We're not forcing them to make a policy change. We're advocating for them to review and make accommodations. Let me just say one more thing, and that is back in June the 10th, I advocated to my colleagues that we would spend some CARES funds to provide technology for these residents to interface their families. I know for a fact that the care home that my mother was in for 3 years, they don't have any technology there that would accommodate a Zoom meeting. It's just inadequate for someone to use technology to have a reasonable interface with their family member. I think we should have addressed this back in June, but that did not happen for whatever reason. And I think we missed an opportunity. It's not too late, by the way. Perhaps we can go back and visit that again. But one thing I care about more than anything here is that these residents are not left alone in their rooms. They're not eating with anybody else. They're left in isolation many times. They're not allowed to leave their rooms. They don't see any family members, and they don't have a way to interface with anybody that they love. And the loneliness and the depression has a real toll on their health. If we say we care about people, this is a very important topic. We talk about the quantity of life, but we should be talking about the quality of life as well. And all this proclamation does is it's a statement saying we're asking these homes to review their policies. And this came to us by community members that are struggling. And again, the stories seem endless. By the way, Commissioner O'Donnell referenced Anne Hathaway. She's the one that has the 87-year-old father who right now is in a care home, and they have no way to communicate. He was in the hospital, and the hospital did not allow her to go into the facility, even though he was not able to answer questions about his own health. And she had the right, if you will, to answer questions about his health because she had the legal authority to do that for him. But it wasn't recognized, and on it goes. And so, although I appreciate the little bit of movement we've seen recently, they have, again, within the proclamation, it talks about 130 different care facilities. The policies are vastly different. And what you can do in one facility may be better than what you can do in another facility. We're asking those that bar family members from coming in to review their policies, and this finds a way to have an interactive opportunity for these family members to engage those residents. They desperately need it. And this needs to be stated. We need someone to stand up and essentially fight for these residents a little bit. I understand the importance of protecting the staff. I want them to be protected, but we've done that so much that we've not recognized the critical care component of family members that come alongside and help the residents and family members in these situations. All this is a statement. It's not a law, not a policy, not a spending proposal. It's simply an advocacy for a review. And if you guys want to vote to push this off for 2 more weeks, please do that, I guess. I can count to 3. But I think we had 8 days' notice. I brought this up a week ago on Tuesday. You've had it since Friday. You had it again since Monday. And I've received virtually no feedback except for one commissioner. I think that it's time for us to stand up. Mr. Chairman, I thank you for the chance to speak.
Commissioner Cruz?
Thank you, Chairman. First and foremost, I really just want to commend you, Commissioner Howe. I think that bringing up and being an advocate is exactly what you're doing by talking about this, by speaking out to the media. I think what you're doing right now is exactly what needs to happen. Again, I think the proclamation being I don't want to discount their weight, but I think exactly what you're doing is going to change more minds than a piece of paper with a bunch of words written on it. And so I think what we're doing, we could pass this today and then we wouldn't talk about it again. Or we could defer it, get some really great language in here, and talk about it again in 2 weeks. And then you have a whole nother chance. You have 2 weeks to advocate. I'm advocating with you. And then we get to advocate again on this platform, using it again. And so I feel like within the next 2 weeks, we'll have multiple opportunities. I know that I have reached out to 3 different long-term care facilities to see, I'd like to include them in this. You know, they themselves have the best knowledge, since they're boots on the ground. I know that these people who work in these residences, and I call it residence because working with Tim Buchanan for many years, you couldn't call it a facility. This is where people live. This is their homes. And quite frankly, at the end of the day, until people start pulling their loved ones out, they might not change their policy. And so I feel like I'd really like to dig deep with you on this and go visit some of these places, or at least call the administrators on the phones and see how we can really make something that will be absolutely impactful, all the while continuing to advocate through our voices, through our emails, through the media, and then give this another go and another be it on the agenda in 2 weeks.
Okay. Commissioner Howell?
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you for your comments, Commissioner Cruz. I do want to work together. This reminds me of Rockford Township a little bit. The reality is, people get exasperated by the discussion. This is the second time recently in those last 2 weeks that I've brought this up, and I've had a fairly long speech today. I want to bring it up, I guess, on October 7th, if not before. But I would ask my colleagues to not get exasperated. This is an incredibly important topic. And people are begging us to do something. They want us to speak up. And so I can count to 3. I'll support the motion to push this off as long as my colleagues will welcome it on October 7th, and they'll participate in helping us write this in a way that is pleasing to everyone. And by the way, I did reach out to a number of long-term care facilities. And, and by the way, a number of people who've written evidence, received 16 emails in the last one day. Many of these people are RNs and people who work in these nursing homes providing services. And they're saying that something needs to be done. They're not happy with the policies either. And so I think the reality is, I think that everyone seems to agree that something needs to change. So I'll support the motion, but I would encourage my colleagues to please participate and let's welcome it in 2 weeks rather than feel exasperated. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? I don't see any. There's been a motion, and a second, to defer this till the next commission meeting. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell? Aye. Commissioner Dennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz?
Aye.
Chairman Meitzner?
Aye. Motion carries. Next item, please.
Item H, report of the Board of Bids and Contracts regular meeting on September 17th, 2020.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners.
Hi, Joe.
Joe Thomas, Purchasing Director. The regular meeting of the Board of Bids and Contracts on September 17th. It results in one item we present to you today. This is for bridge improvements known as B491 and B510 for the two bridges on 71st Street South between Webb and Greenwich Roads. The recommendation is to accept the bid from Claver Construction Company Incorporated, and this is in the amount of $1,053,765.40. I'll be happy to try to answer any questions you may have, and I recommend this approval.
Okay, are there any questions? I don't see any. Recommend a motion I'll make a motion to approve as recommended.
Second.
Been a motion and then multiple seconds. No other questions. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell? Aye. Commissioner Dennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz?
Aye.
Chairman Meitzner?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Consent agenda.
Yes, Mr. Papoon.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you have the consent agenda in front of you. I'd ask that you approve items I through N.
Okay, Commissioners, you have in your agenda the consent items I through N. I recommend a motion to approve.
Second.
There's been a motion to approve items on the consent items I through N. Any comments, questions? Being none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell? Aye. Commissioner Dennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz?
Aye.
Chairman Meitzner.
Aye. Motion carries. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Legislative issues.
Mr. Papoon?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we really don't have any update legislative right now.
Okay. Next item, please.
Other?
Does the commissioners have anything other to speak to? I'll just mention that we are going to have an executive session, so before the public agenda, we will recess for executive session and return for the public agenda. So those that are waiting to address us, I believe there's 6 people, so we will come back for that after. So I will hand over to Commissioner Cruz.
I move that the Board of County Commissioners recess into executive session for 15 minutes until 11:45 for consultation with an attorney for the county regarding deemed matters, deemed privileges in the attorney-client relationship in order to discuss pending litigation, and that the Board of County Commissioners return to a live broadcast from executive session at 11:45.
Second. There's been a motion and Commissioner Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last week, when we talked about the executive session, it was argued that we would lose KPTS, and so we needed to do the executive session prior to the public comment. But then they extended the broadcast, and so although the agenda again once again has public comment after the executive session, I think it'd be a better practice in the future for us to have public comment prior to executive sessions in the future. So I just want to make that plea that I don't think this is a good practice in the future. I would like to see us change this going forward. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. There's been a motion and a second for executive session. Any other comments? Being none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell? Aye. Commissioner Dennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz?
Aye.
Chairman Meitzner.
Aye. We will recess to executive session and return in 15 minutes.
Are you going to go in your office for this public comment, or are you going to sit here? Or? 6. 6? Okay.
Okay, thank you. We have returned from executive session at 11:45. I move that the commission approves the settlement of the personal injury lawsuit of Gorek versus Sedgwick County in the amount of $32,500 and compromise of the disputed claims raised therein. That's my motion.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Any comments, commissioners? Being none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell? Commissioner Dennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz?
Aye.
Chairman Meitzner.
Aye. Motion carries. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Public agenda.
Okay, we entered into the public agenda. We have, I believe we have 6 people arranged. I'm not sure if we are connected. Kate? We will take a few minutes to make sure that we are connected. That's a familiar sound from.
So, testing now. Can you hear me?
Yes,
On the
Alex.
meeting.
Yes.
Okay, we need to turn the volume up. Yeah, I'll turn the video on in a second. Can you see something on your end? Linda?
I find this less nerve than
Okay. Well, can we test audio, please?
This is Pete. Pete Meitzner. Test 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
Is it here?
We can hear you.
Okay. And we can hear you pretty clearly. We can see you.
Yeah, let me turn our volume up because you're coming in a little quiet.
Okay.
We may need to.
I heard it earlier, just fine.
I don't know if they're speaking in the mic.
Okay.
So.
Is the commission's mics on? Are the mics
Yes,
on?
ours are. Or another one. Test. Anybody else?
Okay.
Test.
It's coming in low, so we're gonna need to use our headphones.
Test. Okay.
So.
I guess if we have questions.
Okay, could you speak again, please?
Test 1, 2, 3. Test.
Thank you. I hear you better here. Okay, so we'll need to use our headphones. I'll wipe off in between, and if you're ready, we'll bring the first speaker.
Yes, we're ready. Okay.
Thank you.
First speaker we have on the list was James Vrana.
Would you like me to wipe these off for you? I'm not worried about it if you need to use it. Okay, you'll need to use these.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for being patient. Sorry that our meeting ran a little late.
May I begin? I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I can't hear you.
Yes, state your name. So I apologize for the meeting running a little late, so thank you for your patience. Please state your name.
Thank you.
And you have 5 minutes.
My name's Elizabeth Cochran, and I do want to express my gratitude at the opportunity to speak to you once again. I was there a couple weeks ago. But please understand that since we've all been relegated to the Extension Center and then a Zoom meeting for all 4 of us speakers, it's hard to feel grateful. It's feeling frustrating over here. Although I suppose the silver lining is I won't be able to see people fiddling on their phones while one of their tax-paying citizens speaks to them. I also know that being snarky is not an effective way to persuade you. Again, we're frustrated. And I may have created inadvertently an adversarial situation, but please don't tune out. I want you to understand how belittled we feel as citizens and voters and voices in our community. Just because we differ in opinion from the Commission's mandates doesn't mean we should be treated this way and diminished under the auspices of upholding the mandate. It's rude and not the kind of leadership any of us want to support. Of course, that will be partially dealt with in November with a couple of you. So for today, though, I really just want to specifically address the 4 avowed Republicans on the commission by quoting from the most recent Kansas GOP party platform. The preamble states, "The Kansas Republican Party affirms that the Kansas Constitution, in stating that, quote, 'We the people of Kansas are grateful to the Almighty God for our civil and religious privileges,' end quote. Since man is created in God's image, each person's dignity, freedom, ability, and responsibility must be honored." The platform goes on to state, "The Kansas Republican Party believes that our country and Constitution are honored as exceptional and upheld. Our families and communities are the bedrock strength of our nation. And fascinatingly, our healthcare decisions should be made by us and our doctors. Dr. Menz is not my doctor, neither are any of you. And these mandates are not legally, legislatively passed laws. And any argument that they are valid are made by the very people using them to control us. They are being used right now to create these mini monarchies all over this country and all over this state. This is a dangerous precedent to set aside our state and national constitutions and methods of legal governance. Those methods are there not to curb the freedoms of the American citizens, but to protect them and to curb the power of the government. And now that we are trained to it and maybe getting used to it, there's another big push to change how our elections are held and tabulated. What's the next thing? Getting rid of the Electoral College? Think about how something like that would affect a state like Kansas. The Republican Party is supposed to be the party of smaller government, common sense, law and order, and personal freedom. Because of these bedrocks of the party, I have personally seen an influx of minorities, gays, people tired of cancel culture and being silenced for their opinions coming to this party that stands for personal freedom. One of the main reasons I moved to Wichita from Los Angeles earlier this year was to be in a state that was run by common sense, not by emotion and trend and social justice. I look to you, the Republicans, to uphold why you were elected, and for the two of you up for re-election to really think what this party is about and how you can support it. There is a very specific media narrative going on that is not what people actually feel. Just look at the numbers that showed up here last week and at the city council 2 weeks ago. The people of Wichita are asking you to follow the Constitution, to allow us to be in charge of our own health care. I guarantee you that there will still be mask wearing on a voluntary basis. And at the very least, I ask this commission to use their voice and platform with interviews and social media to remind the community that the mandate states masks or social distancing, and that there are exemptions from the mandate. This is an important point. As this commission continually votes to erode our constitutional rights, the commission is doing nothing to make sure the mandate is actually understood by the public. It has become masks only all the time, or you're treated as some sort of pariah or leper. Even in your own meeting building 2 weeks ago when we were there in person, I was forced to put on a mask to walk across an empty floor. When I questioned that why wasn't the commission's own mandate being followed, which clearly states 6 feet of distance and a mask only when that can't be maintained, I was met with implacable stares, no answer to my question. The answer was, you have to wear a mask. It's not what the mandate states. And please don't pass the buck about how the building and some judge sets the rules. It all starts with the mandate. So Republicans, I implore you, be a Republican. That's why we've supported you and voted for you. Stand up for your party, the party of freedom, small government, and individual rights, and the party that trusts its citizens and businesses to do what is right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cochran. I don't see any questions. Next speaker, please.
Were there any questions? Are you ready for your next speaker?
Yes. Next speaker, please.
Janine, I'm sorry. Janine, yes. This may be just a little wet, but that's okay.
Okay, good afternoon. Welcome. Please state your name, and you have 5 minutes to address the commission.
Good morning, commissioners. I'm
morning.
Janine Shantz. I live in a neighboring community. I work, eat out, shop, and attend church in Sedgwick County, although less so in recent months. Today, I want to respond to comments by Commissioner Cruz that she made on September 16th. She stated she wants to keep the majority safe, that deaths happen every day, and that the measures are working. Commissioner Cruz wants to keep the majority safe. That sounds noble, but safe from what? From government overreach? From crime? From weather-related tragedy? From bad relationships? From illness? The commission can certainly protect us from government overreach by rescinding the mask mandate. As for crime and weather-related tragedies, my role is to act on good information by locking my doors and heading for the basement when I hear the sirens. However, regarding relationships and my health, I make these decisions in concert with the people I trust, people who know me and my vulnerabilities. And Commissioner Cruz, the majority is already safe. When 99% of those infected with COVID recover, the vast majority is already safe. Deaths happen every day. Yes, every death is sad. Very sad for those left behind. But it is also a certainty here on this earth. People die every day from car accidents, cardiac arrest, and careless, reckless life choices. Government can't prevent these, nor was it designed to. If preventing death is a priority, I suggest volunteering at a local crisis pregnancy center to help prevent the certain death of unborn children who die every single day. The measures are working. Which ones? Masks, social distancing, crowd size limits, washing hands, sanitizing surfaces, limited business operations. There's other measures that may be working, like summer weather, outdoor activities, supplements. Earlier, more informed intervention by patients and doctors, virus mutation, which may lead to less severe illness, the natural historical curve of viruses, which we have seen in the past. Masks are the weakest measure, but are the greatest government overreach. Who puts up a chain link fence to keep the mosquitoes out? Yet we're told cloth masks protect us from ultra tiny virus particles. The mask labels read, does not prevent the transmission of viruses. Months ago, the experts told us masks were not needed, not helpful, and would probably increase transmission. The good news, the vast majority are already safe. Our everyday is in God's hands. And the masks, the weakest measure, can be safely rescinded. It's time to let the people go back to managing their own health behaviors. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Next speaker, please. Yes, please.
You ready for me?
Yes, ma'am. State your name.
All
and
right.
you have 5
I'm
minutes.
Melissa Ortiz from Hayesville.
Hi, Melissa.
Thank you for allowing me to be here today. I am here to discuss the mask mandates and how they affect others with public shaming and bullying. These mask mandates are affecting not only the mask wearers, they're also affecting the non-mask wearers. The mandates are allowing the mask wearers to publicly shame, harass, and bully in public places. Not only that, it has come down to people being physically assaulted, and that's just not acceptable. To start off, I can tell you, just like you've heard from other people, when I put on a mask, it does give me headaches, nausea, and the feeling of wanting to pass out while I walk around a store. This leads to feelings of anxiety. I've suffered times in my life that have led up to panic and anxiety attacks. Do you know what makes this feeling worse? Worrying about someone coming up to me and harassing me because I'm not wearing a mask. People say that if I cannot wear a mask, then I should stay home. Do you want to know how that makes me feel and many other people feel? It can lead to depression. I shouldn't have to be held up in my home and face the worries of my depression coming back that stems from my past that I do not wish to share publicly. I've been to counseling. I've gotten help numerous times for this, but I shouldn't have to be put in this position because of these mask mandates and the public shaming and harassment that we receive. Being out in public, these mandates are only forcing us with mental health issues back into a place that we don't want to go back to. Being out in public and doing these things helps me keep my mind occupied. I enjoy life by spending time with my friends and family who are an amazing support system. I enjoy nature, gardening, camping, and fresh air. All these things that I find my whole life living for. Non-mask wearers are called selfish and grandma killers. Now, this is not acceptable either. I am responsible for my health and my family's health. If someone wears a mask in public, that's awesome. I'm glad that they are. If it makes them feel safe or they're a caregiver protecting someone who is at high risk, I respect that. I will not ridicule or follow them around in a public place and harass them. We are all going through something in our lives, whether it's physical or mental. I was brought up to use manners. When I see a mask wearer in public, I say, "Excuse me," and I keep my distance. If they're in the same aisle as me and looking at the same brand of potato chips, I stand enough space to let them choose their product and walk away. Then I will go get mine. I'm avid about sanitizing and hand washing. It's just common health sense. Really, this isn't all about my story today. I've heard many stories from people throughout these mask mandates. I think, what about people who are suffering mental or physical issues way worse than what I'm going through? Maybe they're afraid to come out and publicly speak today because of their own mental health that they're trying to protect. I'm here to be a voice for others who cannot be here to use their voices. I suggest that the commissioners join Facebook groups to hear and read about these stories of what these people are going through right now. Here are some examples. These are not anyone's true story, but examples of what someone may be going through. What about the woman who was recently sexually or physically assaulted? She can't wear a mask in public because she may be suffering from PTSD due to her recent events. And Karen comes along and follows her through the whole store, calling her selfish and ignorant, and tells her that she needs to put on a damn mask. The victim may have feelings of being assaulted all over again, but in another form, which could also affect her mentally and lead to so many other issues. What about the man contemplating suicide? It took everything out of him to get up and go to the grocery store after weeks and be in a bed of depression, and decides that he needs to buy himself a gallon of milk. Then Ken comes along and decides to call the depressed man horrible names for not wearing a mask. Does this make this man feel any better? He already feels down, and Ken's name calling leads to his final thoughts of suicide. What about Mama, who has been up all night with a colic baby, and Dad had to go to work, and Mom needs to stop at the store with the crying baby to get a can of formula? Here comes Karen along and screams at Mama for not wearing a mask and tells her that she doesn't care about her baby. How does that make Mama feel? Absolutely horrible. This just needs to stop. We don't know what is going on in someone's life, and I feel that whether we wear a mask or not, that we need to come together as a society and stop all of this hate. Just be kind. I challenge each and every one of you commissioners today to post on your profiles to stop mask bullying in public places and just be kind to one another. Y'all have a platform to reach many people. I challenge you to speak out against shaming and bullying. It goes hand in hand. Lacey Cruz allowed shaming by posting on her profile about non-mask wearers sending in emails, and that led to comments of her people discussing how they shame people in public places, and this is not okay. Lacey, you can make this right and put an end to the hate with your people. Commissioners, please vote to end the mask mandate now. Thank you for your time. Just be kind always. And one last thing I'd like to add. I've noticed Commissioner Howell for speaking up for the people during the meetings and taking the time to hear our voices. It really means a lot to the rest of us. And Commissioner O'Donnell, I just want to thank you for what you have done for our district and our lovely town of Hayesville. Your work has not gone unrecognized, and you've been amazing. So I really appreciate both of you for what you've done for all of us.
Ma'am,
Great
can you
day.
hold on one second? Can you hear? Commissioner O'Donnell wants to speak to you.
Melissa, I told you I was going to call you out publicly. Thank you for coming. I know that this is uncomfortable for you. You weren't excited about public speaking, but you're so passionate about it. And I see you on the Hayesville message boards, the Hayesville Happenings, Real Hayesville Happenings, always advocating for this. And most importantly, you're always advocating for the kids in USC 261. So thank you for that, because I know that's what you care about more than anything, is our kids' mental and physical health and the way this is affecting them. So thank you for always being an advocate for not just your children, but all the children in Sedgwick County and primarily in 261. So that's awesome. And I agree with you. We do need to take a harder stance against bullying, because we don't know the mental or physical health issues that somebody not wearing a mask might be going through. And I brought that up last week, that we need people to be more patient, because there are physical and mental restrictions to certain individuals wearing a mask. So thank you. That we need to continue to push that message forward. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. No more questions? There's not any other questions. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can. Please state your name. You have 5 minutes to address the commission.
Roger that. My name is Alan Peterson.
Thank you.
I've lived here in Sedgwick County with my wife and my family since 2008. We retired from the military here a few years back, and we've decided to make Derby our home. We love the community. We enjoy so many great things that this area has to offer. But I have to say, I'm here to speak obviously on behalf of those who are being silenced with the mask, and asking that you guys roll things back here and consider the actual science, actual numbers, and the data. There are a lot of you up there that call yourself Republicans, and my question is, are you in the mold of Ted Cruz, or are you in the mold of Romney? Because there's quite a bit of difference. There's quite a bit of extreme in between there. Anyway, I wanted to start. I don't have any exact remarks here. I have some ideas, some things floating around in my head, so I'm just kind of winging it here. But I just wanted to say from personal testimony of somebody who's had the virus, totally survivable, kind of sucked. It was about 2 days of 2 to 3 days of just, body aches, fatigue, mild flu-like symptoms for me. I didn't have much of the respiratory stuff. I had a real low fever, like 100.4. Started in on a Sunday. By Tuesday, I was still feeling a little icky, had called into work, told them I didn't know what was going on, but I was going to take some time off here just because we're in Corona season. And so I did that. I was harassed by my employer, coerced into getting a test I did not want to take. I didn't have a lot of stock in the testing process because I've heard plenty of examples of people even just signing in on the Clipboard, leaving, and getting notified that they tested positive for COVID when they never tested in the first place. So the shenanigans are many, not to mention all the false positives and whatnot. At any rate, so I finally, after consulting with my pastor and some others, I finally did decide to get the test. Wanted to feed my family, right? So I finally did that. Got the results back. It was positive. I felt confident I did have the virus because it kind of ran through my church community. I did lose my sense of smell, which is kind of comical. But anyway, my work, finally, after 2 weeks, I was able to come back to work. We were watching a school board meeting, and the school board decided to continue with this nonsense. And so we made the decision to pull our kids out of public school. So I now am homeschooling. I quit my job to homeschool my kids, gave up my career in order to do that because we felt that was important. So what sacrifices are you guys really making? All these different elected officials that, are making all these rules and these mandates and these guidelines for the rest of us. Have you gone without pay? Have you sacrificed? It just seems like all this is being thrust upon us on fake science that continually changes, from Fauci clear back in like March and May saying masks are not necessary to every day something's different. Even the World Health Organization is now saying that the idea of asymptomatic spread was a bunch of hooey. That doesn't get any play in the press because it goes against the narrative. So I just ask that you quit the lockdown, quit the mask mandates. This is America. Let us choose for ourselves. Okay, you're not responsible for my healthcare. I am. You're not responsible for my family's healthcare and well-being. I am. And all these people that are wearing masks, they are welcome to do so. I fully support that right. But for the rest of us, let us have that choice for crying out loud. And to say that, well, I'm wearing a mask because it protects you, and I'm just totally selfless, that's what I'm doing it for, because I'm wearing a mask. No, I'm not. I'm wearing it because I think it protects me, even though the actual science says it doesn't protect you at all. In fact, you read on the box of an N95 medical grade mask, the newer ones that have come out, they say, will not protect you from coronavirus. And yet people are wearing them anyway. People are selfish by nature. That's just the way it is. It's the result of living in a fallen, sinful world. Okay? So let's cut all the nonsense. Okay? The masks don't work. And even worse, they're actually bad for your health, which is the main reason that I avoid it at all costs. I've only had to put them on a handful of times. Any other time, I totally either avoid the place, I don't shop there. If they have a mask policy that they're enforcing, we leave. That's just the way it is. Our Costco membership, we're not renewing. We're going to go somewhere else. And a lot of other people have made the same decision. So I just ask you, especially you that call yourself Republicans up there, are you really true Republicans? Are you true conservatives? I do have something here that kind of defines conservatism in a nutshell, that it's a political and social philosophy characterized by respect for American traditions, limited government, support for Christian values, pro-business, strong national defense, free trade, anti-communism, pro-individualism, individual liberty, in other words, freedom, advocacy of American exceptionalism, and defense of Western culture from perceived threats posed by communism, socialism, and moral relativism. So here we are. Once again, the question I started with, what kind of Republicans are you guys? Because I know that at least one of you, I believe, is up for re-election. I appreciate Commissioner Howell taking a stand for freedom, for liberty, and I just pray that the rest of you will wake up, okay? I mean, just examine tune out all the garbage that's in the media, okay, all the stuff you're being spoon-fed all the time, what your supposed expert, Dr. Mins, is going with. Stop living in fear and panic. Stop perpetuating that. I mean, for crying out loud.
Okay, Mr.
Enough is
Peterson.
enough here, okay?
Yeah.
All right, I appreciate you guys. I'll stand
Hold
for
on.
questions.
Yes, you have a question from Commissioner Howell.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maybe more of a comment, but Alan, I've gotten to know you a little bit by the fact that you are a passionate person in the Derby community. You've spoke up on a number of issues. I have the greatest respect for you. I want to say thank you for your service to our country, first of all.
Thank you.
And I know that you are very principled, and you've advocated for, in our schools, for example, for principled policies. And I just want to say, I remember those. I've really grown to respect your brilliance and your passion for principled leadership. And I want to say thank you for the reminder today that we do have principles within our party of small government and personal freedom, and I think that's a good reminder. And if I apply that to this issue of government mandates, I do think that we maybe have crossed the line a few places here. So I think it's a good reminder. So I want to say thank you for taking time to come out and visit with us today.
I appreciate it, Commissioner. Thank you.
Yes,
Any other
thank
questions?
you. Nope, no other questions. None. Thank you.
All right, roger that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, all right, thank you. All right, Commission, that was the final speaker, so we will move to accept the receive and file the speakers, and as well as the emails that we received before that. So motion and a second to receive and file the speakers that we had today on the public agenda and the other emails that were submitted beforehand. I don't see other comment. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell? Aye. Commissioner Dennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz? Aye. Chairman Meitzner?
Aye. Being no other business in front of the commission, we will stand adjourned.